OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent modes.
7:30 on this Friday morning, November 25th on OTB AM, brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mow. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. Esteemed journalist and broadcaster and Galway man, Johnny Ward, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning, Shane.
And Kathleen McNamee, Sligo's own Koi Gig pod presenter as well. Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
How are you keeping? The back pages are dominated by one photograph, and it's Richarlison's mad one last night. Johnny, you were trying to find a nice quiet spot for maybe a little pint last night, and Brazilian fans were everywhere in Dublin as it turned out.
I came back from Thurles and was dropped at the Red Cow. So when I'm dropped at the Red Cow, I live in Harold's Cross now, so it's kind of it's convenient to get off from Rialto. So I went into the other hand, which would be a bar that kind of is frequented by a lot of locals and a lot of I suppose non-nationals living in Dublin as well, but literally all the seats were taken. I was like, what is this?
Who's playing in the World Cup?
A party or something, or like a 40th or a 50th or 30th or something, but instead it was just Brazil fans. So there was a bit of old man Ward in me and said I'll go over to the Bird Flanagan and have a quiet pint there. But while I was there in the Bird Flanagan, there was a guy at the bar and he was kind of moaning about the World Cup, and he said the mystery is gone. But back in the day we didn't know the players, like, you know, we know them all now. But I think last night there was a bit of like, wow, this Brazil team is like seeing a Brazil team for the first time in the 1982 World Cup or something like that, and saying, oh my God, these guys can play football. I thought they were amazing. So there was, as much as I've despised the World Cup in many levels, that was a night where you're kind of like, this is like the old days, watching Brazil wow you.
I think we can put it up on screen. Aisling O'Reilly, our own Aisling, was at the Woolshed pub on Parnell Street last night, and she was kind of getting some flavour of the atmosphere of the Brazilian fans and the national anthem and that sort of thing. So we can have a look at that now.
Is really channeling his inner Johnny Ward, putting on a national anthem at the start of the show there.
that could be a pub in Sao Paulo or Rio. I mean, that's brilliant.
There are a lot of Brazilians in Dublin.
There are,
Really,
you could say there's a Brazilian of them.
Yeah, we'll have that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
How long were you saving that one up, Shane?
Yeah, I was waiting for someone to set me up, and thankfully someone did. Look, like the atmosphere. I feel like Brazil. The World Cup hasn't really arrived until you get to see the yellow of Brazil coming out and playing. And it was a decent game.
It is actually nice to see something like that, because I don't know, I haven't really enjoyed this World Cup at all. I haven't, apart from when I'm in work, I don't really watch any of the games because I just find it really difficult to. But it's actually nice to properly see people enjoying it and whatever. I'm very much against all the politics of the whole thing. But it is nice to see people who aren't in their own country gathering together, singing their national anthem, having a moment, actually enjoying the football. It's one of the nicer things I've seen out of this World Cup.
I'm beginning to dream, I think, that they might win it after last night.
It's funny, and like they were taking lads off the bench like it was just like, oh yeah, here's another world class player. Belt. It was just what it was.
We were talking like pre-show. I mean, I was saying to JD on Saturday. JD was he put up Richarlison as one of his top scorer bets, and I was like, that's actually an interesting shout. But
25 to 1.
I watched Serbia in the flesh in Dublin against Ireland. I'm like, this is a good side, and I was like, this is going to be a real test. I thought Brazil really had a big challenge on. They absolutely they could barely get a hold of the ball for 2 seconds. Serbia, they absolutely battered them. I think Serbia's lack of pace was really problematic because they couldn't do anything on the break. But Brazil were unbelievably from top to bottom. I thought they were unbelievable, really.
Class. I think we had footage of the reaction to Richarlison's goal as well in the pub last night.
I'm like Kathleen about this World Cup in that I haven't really enjoyed it, and I find the whole thing it's just so wrong on every level. But can you imagine being an Ireland fan and scoring a goal like that at a World Cup? And I know it's Brazil, but when you step back at a moment, they're watching their team score one of the best World Cup goals probably ever. They're entitled to celebrate.
What's our best tournament goal ever? As in the best quality. I don't mean it could be Houghton's lob against Italy.
That was a bit of a fluke. With all due respect, it was
What, the fluke, the Houghton one?
Yeah, he had a bit of a pop shot and they tried to keep us off his line.
Column says Houlihan. Ronnie Whelan. Yeah, Ronnie Whelan's
Ronnie Whelan.
That's fair.
That was slightly mishit as well. He kind of shinned it. That was the best goal.
Don't say it, Johnny. Yeah, you're right though.
It probably and it looked amazing at the time.
I mean, Robbie Keane's goal for that's the most impactful, one of the most impactful goals. But I guess it's not the best stylistically. But we've had some decent goals in World Cups.
Have we?
Well, reasonable.
How many goals have we had at all?
I feel we just get excited at the fact we've scored, and then in our memories we're
each one of them becomes a
Matt Holland actually. Colin Bowie has done a lot this morning. He's brought coffee to both of us. He's channeled the inner Johnny Ward national anthems, and he's recalled one of Ireland's most underrated goals. Matt Holland's daisy cutter was technically an absolute dinger of a goal.
Yeah, it
was.
But
because it didn't go into the top corner, and there was so much furore about Roy Keane. I think that was an amazing goal.
We should, yeah. We should also say, speaking of amazing, Kathleen McNamee's an amazing person. And,
it's her birthday today.
It is her birthday today.
Thank you very much,
Kathleen
guys.
McNamee, happy birthday.
That's the nicest thing I think anyone has ever said.
We have music as well, yes. And a Friday
now we'll
birthday.
stand for the national anthem.
Yeah. Can we stand up? What do we do now? I feel like a Friday birthday is...
Oh,
perfect.
yeah.
You know when you look at it,
nice.
12 months ahead of your birthday and you're like, what day is my birthday going to be on next year? Say you're eyeing up the Friday one, you're like, yeah, that's going to be.
No, it is. It's actually been really nice because I remember this time last year I was in London by myself, very, very lonely, kind of wandering around the city, nothing to do, no one to see. And last night I went to a gig with some of my best friends. Sigrid. It was so very good with Jen and Will, two of my best friends. And then I meet my boyfriend Brian later, who has been very, very good to me this
And
year.
Brian, by the way, there is an implication that, Brian could be doing anything for me, as in the pressure's on. I was saying, I had a pre-arranged kind of thing that I wanted to sort of catch. I don't know what I'm doing today. My boyfriend could be doing anything. Okay, all bets are off.
But that's pressure.
So pressure's on.
Yeah.
If you're listening, Brian, all bets are off.
No pressure. Yeah, Sigrid, by the way, big fan of Sigrid.
She was so good live.
Don't Feel Like Crying.
So good.
Sucker Punch.
Yeah.
Some great tunes.
It was just such a good bop. And she was so delighted. You know when you're watching someone, it's a bit like when you're watching someone play football and they're just loving life.
Yeah.
And they're so happy. That was her on stage. And you just couldn't help but get in that mood.
Yeah.
And the crowd was really nice. There's no pushing and shoving. There was plenty of space. It was a very, very good night. I sound like such an old person as well, being there was lots of space.
Yeah,
it was really
I
nice.
could breathe, I could sit down every now and again.
Yeah.
Lovely. No, that's class. Happy birthday to Kathleen, of course, from everyone at Off the Ball.
Thank you very much, guys.
Cristiano Ronaldo, I don't know how you felt about the Portugal game, but we're all hoping for upsets now at this World Cup because it's become the World Cup of upsets because Saudi Arabia and Japan and all these results that are happening. But fortunately, Ghana couldn't. It wouldn't be a massive upset if Ghana had beaten Portugal, of course. But Ronaldo again stealing all the headlines, as he tends to do. But 5 World Cups that he scored at, that's not a bad record.
Yeah, that is incredible. I was
Marsha did it first.
Yeah, fair.
Probably
100%.
hoping he didn't score at this one because I just think he's made a bit of a show of himself going into it. But I don't know, the penalty decision for me, I was like, how do you make that call? And Ronaldo celebrating a penalty as if I know he's broken records, but it does seem to be still all about me.
Someone's commented Ronaldo still dived.
He did. It was simulation, really. Like, and it was. I thought it was like unsportsmanship because
wasn't it?
It was, because it's like you're in a World Cup. Get up, like, and we're kind of in an era now where players are tackling more, and there's not as much, like, I think, play acting, because they've changed the rules a little bit, and it's gotten almost a little bit more physical. But that's just diving, really.
The referee was only, and this was pointed out on Twitter, only too keen to give the penalty. Like, it was like he straight as Ronaldo was falling, almost he had the whistle in the mouth.
On a VAR, it's not a penalty at all. Like, in my view, I mean, it's at best a 50-50 call. But then don't give it.
It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't derive much enjoyment out of that.
No, but sure, and it was the last minute when the Ghana forward Inaki Williams, he's standing behind the Portuguese keeper Diogo Costa, and you're thinking, because I saw him standing behind him, and then the camera cut away, and I was like, he's obviously going to see him there.
Yeah.
And then it just cuts back to this moment of panic.
Yeah.
When he's slipping and out, you're like, holy Jesus, nobody saw him. Shay Given was on the RT coverage. I enjoyed it as well. I literally came straight back to Shay, and he was like, well, I'm the worst person to talk to this about, because Dion Dublin did it to me famously, and he was like, famously, he was the only Irish person who didn't know where Dublin was. So I thought it was a decent line, but like it was just one of those moments. It's probably, there's like the Ghana jersey was white, and there was probably white fans or placards or something in the background that you know, and
these things happen, you know. Yeah,
but it could have been such a historic, famous goal. You know, 3-3 draw, Ghana, last gasp. And no,
followed by Richarlison.
The slip just ruined it, unfortunately. But yeah, it was a good football.
When you said you had reaction to the goal earlier, I fully thought it was going to be John Duggan just in his living room after having said that Brazil are going to win it, loving the fact it was Richarlison scoring.
Yeah,
I had a bet against Brazil last night, but the thing is, when you take such a beating like that, you're like, fair enough, I got it wrong, but I was straight over to JD. You have real hope here. Richarlison, the man, is on fire, and Brazil are clearly, they look, well, they're not. I don't know if you say overwhelming favourites, but they look really strong.
Yeah. The brother backed before the tournament, Brazil to win, Richarlison top goal scorer, double, 100-1.
Is there anything the Hannons can't do? Like
it remains to be seen now whether that'll come up, but yeah, it's
100-1.
100-1. I mean, Richarlison looks good. I was slagging John, Tottenham Hotspur fan, of course, in the office this morning, saying he might even join a big Premier League club after this World Cup.
I did get a massive laugh out of that when I heard you say it earlier.
The pace of Brazilians' play was like, Serbia just looked like they were 10 years older than them.
First half was quite tetchy, and Brazil,
but even then,
there,
they were totally dominant.
Yeah.
They were, and I was like, I thought, well, maybe Serbia will go into the game. They actually just turned it on then in the second half, and the pace of their movement in attack, I thought, was like, I haven't seen that at the World Cup. Like, France looked quite good, and they have like amazing attacking players. So I missed the Spain game, unfortunately. And
I know it's Costa Rica, but they were superb. Yeah, big time.
But the speed of Brazilians' movement, and they didn't look like conceding at all, really.
No.
Like, obviously, you're playing Thiago, so you're going to give up a chance to maybe somebody with a bit of pace, but it must have been one of the best, like, group stage, like, domination. Serbia are a good side. Like, they're a good side, and they could have beaten them 5-0.
Yeah, 100%.
Really, real saving of intent, and they look like they're together as well when they're coming off, and as you say, the conveyor belt of players coming on.
Yeah, that group will be interesting, because they'll all, you'd imagine, beat, is the Cameroon in that group? Am I right in saying? But Serbia and Switzerland will go the last game, Serbia and Switzerland, essentially, which will be, that'll be amazing, because that'll be a shootout.
Really match sides,
Switzerland got to the last 16 of the last.
I feel like that's the sort of game though that you'll build up and be like, that'll be amazing. It'll be like a 0-0 draw or something, and it'll be really tetchy, and it'll be a terrible game of football to watch.
Yeah. The goalie will be done in the last minute by a fella behind him. Yeah,
someone will scrape through on goal difference or something. A couple of comments coming in on the YouTube channel as well. But Bob Dwyer, our resident Spurs fan, apart from John Duggan, of course. Tuning in now, so I may have missed you fawning over Richarlison's goal. We have done a little bit of fawning over the goal. Best part of it was all the Arsenal fans on Twitter. Richarlison has done nothing. Jesus should be starting. Strange fan base. Spurs fans getting the dig into Arsenal straight away. You forget that
not just enjoy the moment, like.
Oh, Kathleen, the Arsenal fan, speaking up, she's been.
Well, like, I didn't even say anything. Yeah, I have said nothing. All I said was I enjoyed your joke. I didn't mention it once.
It's a decent joke. It's not bad. Shifty Lad says the first 30 minutes was a tough game. They earned the way to play. Didn't get bullied at all. Very good Brazilian team. And someone else making the point, Jesus has 1 goal in his last 19 for Brazil. That's why he's not starting.
Wow.
Like Richarlison's record for Brazil, I understand why Chicha puts him in the team, because
he's a different player.
He is. That's not really the Richarlison we see in the Premier League.
No.
We've seen glimpses of it.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that Richarlison.
They did look really together, didn't they? Like, you throw international teams together, and a lot of the time they're not like that in tune with each other, either mentally or physically, and in terms of, like, you know, just little patterns of play. They look like they were out in a camp together. They really look like they knew what they were doing.
That's the thing about like just the camaraderie when they're on the team bus, they're dancing and stuff, and they're kind of.
I wouldn't
See
have
the
played
video
that.
of them getting off the team bus, and they had like
Rubbies
Neymar
and
had a
all.
big drum and everything, and they all like danced their way in.
Yeah, it's cringe, but it's also like
Kevin Kilbane, of course, shares the hotel with him, doesn't he?
he does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin rubbing shoulders with the greats. So
Just imagine him like coming in at the back with another drum, just being like,
yeah. Sorry, I said Kevin rubbing shoulders with the greats, but I mean the Brazilian team were getting to rub shoulders with
Kevin Kilbane.
which is, for by all accounts, the better story. There's a couple of decent stories actually in the World Cup on the back pages of the papers this morning. So this is an interesting one on the back page of The Guardian. Jacob Steinberg has a story: armband blackmail by FIFA. England, Wales and 5 other European nations fear their captains will be exposed to, quote, unlimited liability and would have faced suspensions if they defied FIFA's banning of the pro-diversity One Love armband during the World Cup. So, of course, there's been all this criticism over the not wearing of the One Love armband, and the story in the paper essentially saying that they felt that the punishment was going to be more than the yellow card.
I just have such a big eye roll about this whole
Yeah,
thing.
100%.
Like, you're protesting something. You know you're going to get some sort of repercussion, whether it's a yellow card. And like, even the way they're talking about it, when they were talking about the yellow card, they were saying, you know, I can't do that to my teammates. I can't, you know, put them in that position. And you're like, but you're doing it to like your fellow country people anyways. Like, you're not standing up for them. You're not supporting them. Take the punishment. It would be... It's one thing, say, like, if FIFA had actually given them a red card, or if FIFA had chucked them out of the tournament, or whatever it is that they're actually afraid FIFA were going to do, that would have turned this into a massive, like, global scandal.
Yeah.
And it, like, they wouldn't have been able to get away with it. So I understand that they might have had their fears, but I just do not get this, like, sort of trickle of information coming out now saying, like, oh, well, we feared some unknown bigger repercussion.
There's other stories even this morning talking about FIFA being accused of ignoring the One Love Nations referees. So those nations I mentioned that are particularly vocal about the armband: England, Wales, Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, Denmark. No referees from those countries have reffed a game yet. Now, coincidence? I don't know, but
It's so pathetic. Like,
It's
I
mad.
mean, if you bring a country to a conservative Muslim state, if you bring a World Cup rather to a conservative Muslim state, obviously, you know, it's not going to be straightforward. But FIFA is making itself an absolute joke out of this tournament, like an absolute joke.
100%.
Completely agree with Kathleen. And I mean, I don't know, if I were a player, I'd find it very hard to bow to this nonsense. Like, and it's not me saying that the way we do things in the West is the best way to go about things. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're far from perfect. But this is pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. And there are so many problems with this World Cup. Like, my biggest one is, where's the legacy out of this? Like,
Yeah.
what some of these stadia are being ripped up. Like, what is the point of this? Like, bring a World Cup to the Middle East, absolutely. Bring it to a country with 350,000 locals and a load of expats. What is the point of this? And now, I'm with Kathleen on this. I can't really enjoy it, because every few minutes of enjoying the game, I start thinking about the crap that's behind it.
Yeah.
And look at, you know, anyway.
it was mad. Yeah, because even last night I was looking. Was it the Brazil game, or one of the games was at Stadium 974?
The shipping
that's the one
container
that
one.
Yeah, like, and I had totally, this story had skipped me by that it's made out of 974 shipping containers, which I thought, that's a nice idea, recyclable, nice, I guess, eco-friendly stadium. But then it's being ripped apart the second the tournament ends. So, like,
But they're taking it apart and then they're going to build it somewhere else.
Okay,
So
right.
this is the thing, that they're able to take it apart and put it wherever they want.
at least that's relatively eco-friendly.
Yeah.
It was costing like more than every World Cup put together, like 212 billion or something.
Which is mad.
For what?
Yeah.
This is essentially oil money. Like,
Yeah.
So the irony of the climate crisis and oil money funding this stupid World Cup with all these other issues shouldn't be lost on anyone.
Yeah.
And that's why it's hard to enjoy it. Where you're looking at the destruction of the planet, this horrible sort of FIFA organisation that went over to this country for, we all know why, and that's why it's hard to enjoy it. And if Ireland were there, you do wonder.
I know. How much can you enjoy it?
I don't know.
We see, you'd enjoy it when it's on. And like we all are, we're watching the games, we're getting sucked into it. But then there's going to be the feeling before the tournament, after the tournament, and when all these stories come up where you're like, this doesn't feel
It
good.
should also, as well, like, Infantino's obviously going, I think it's his third term unopposed for election, but, like, countries still need to vote on him. And I think it's Denmark have said that they're not going to vote for him, so I don't know if they're abstaining or whatever it is. But the FAI released a statement, I think it was to The Independent yesterday, saying that they're going to think about it and they're not going to say anything now, but, like, it will be brought up about what they should do. So, and I don't know how much abstaining from a vote actually does at the end of the day. Like, I think you need to do a little bit more, but it's just an interesting one to probably like keep on people's radars, because I think the pressure should be put there for the FAI to do something. I know we're not at this World Cup, but we're still in FIFA tournaments, we're still competing. You know, like what can we do? It might be very small, but what can we do now to actually impact on future World Cups, future tournaments, whatever it might be? Because Infantino's, never mind all the stuff about Qatar anyways, and like the awarding of it, even just the comments he made at the very start of this tournament, everything that's happened since, some of the people he has been rubbing shoulders with.
Mohammed bin Salman.
Yeah. It's mad, because anytime you say anything negative about the World Cup, there's obviously going to be people who will say, oh, you're virtue signalling, you're woke, all the rest. But I mean, some people have fingers in the ears on the negative stories around the World Cup. I'm enjoying the World Cup. I'm watching it, but doesn't mean that I don't have a deep negative feeling about it in the bottom of my heart, and I don't feel like it's no. Everyone knows it's not the right thing. It shouldn't be it shouldn't be in Qatar.
Carlos Queiroz is in the back page of the Guardian.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting what he says, because I've sympathy for him in the sense that
he's getting asked all these questions constantly.
He is in a relationship with Iran. Like, I've been to Iran. It's an amazing country, amazing people. Most of them are quite young and struggling to kind of exist in a regime that is basically a regime that they probably don't want at this stage. But Carlos Queiroz, it's not quite like Eddie Howe being the Saudi manager. Carlos Queiroz is manager of Iran, and if you're going to engage in whataboutery, you're not going to take any job. And he's making the point that, well, you're calling me out on this. Like, what about, would Gareth Southgate be called out in the invasion of Afghanistan? Yeah. He's absolutely right on that. It's like, if you can engage, none of these countries is perfect, from Britain to Saudi Arabia. But at the same time, it is a bit of a sideshow. There's something in the background all the time. And the Iranian, you know, we covered this the other night in the show with Joe, but the Iranian protests I thought was fascinating, because I was full of admiration for the Iranian players at the time.
Yeah.
And it just made England look even more stupid.
It did. But then it's kind of like, there's also a view, well, actually the Iranian players haven't gone far enough here. They just didn't sing the national anthem. So there's a lot going on. And to me, that Iranian sideshow is one of the fascinating aspects of it as well, because that's a country in utter turmoil at the moment.
But that's like the thing with the England story today, that they feared unlimited liability. Like, what the Iranians did, they genuinely have a fear, and like for their families that are back home, whatever it is, they could have faced proper persecution for what they did. And we can say it didn't go far enough, and maybe it didn't, but even that small act meant they were putting themselves and the people they loved in so much trouble. England didn't wear an armband, and they might have got a yellow card, or they might have got a suspension, whatever it was. And it probably would have ended up being the bigger story if that actually happened, which is ridiculous in and of itself, because what is happening in Iran at the moment is awful, and there are so many people, especially so many women, who are being put in such a horrendous place. And that's the thing that frustrates me so much about this whole, should they wear their armband, should they not wear their armband? We just want to concentrate on the football. You're like, for 1 second, just take yourself out of that. You can still concentrate on the football, and you can still like play an incredible game, and you can also make people in your country, and you're looking at probably like a large part of the population, you can make them actually feel seen, heard. And next year when you turn up wearing your rainbow laces, or I don't know, like, you know, the way they always turn different stadiums rainbow coloured around Pride time, you can actually stand back and be like, no, I actually did something to do this. Because when all those campaigns come around next year in the Premier League, what are they going to do? Are they going to, like, is Harry Kane going to turn up with his rainbow laces? Is he going to wear an armband then?
Yes.
Yeah, and like the hypocrisy of it is just astounding to me. Like, it,
When I was in Iran, I met a couple of people that I'm friendly with ever since, just randomly, and one of them was texting me before the game, and he's like, what is your prediction for the Wales game? I was like, Iran didn't look like they were overly bothered against England to me. Maybe I'm wrong. And he took this the wrong way. He said, I think they want to win. Clearly intentional loss has grave consequences for them. That's the country they live in. It's like,
which is mad.
That's where you're at. Like, now, I wasn't implying that they were intentionally losing, but to me it didn't look like their hearts were, like, a good Iranian team would at least, they wouldn't concede 6 goals against England. Carlos Queiroz would manage them well. I know the goalkeeper situation, but that game against Wales is going to be interesting, because I'm sure, I don't know what Iranian TV is showing at home in terms of them not singing the anthem or whatever, but
100%. It's mad, just all the off-pitch stories just keep racking up as the World Cup goes on. Before we get to Kevin Kilbane, who's standing by in Qatar, we should touch on Arsenal Juventus last night in the Champions League. Kathleen, 1-1 draw at the Allianz Stadium. Arsenal still in the driving seat though for the Champions League quarter-final top spot?
Yeah, like I think last night was a weird game in that Arsenal are losing so many players to injuries at the moment. Like obviously it was now Beth Mead during the week has done her ACL, which probably puts her out of the World Cup next year, which is quite sad for her considering how much success she's had. Leah Williamson, Raffaele, like I think they had something like 7 players on the bench compared to Juventus's 12, and 2 of those were goalies, and the other 5 were not like big name players. So Arsenal will be happy enough with a 1-1 result, but probably would have liked to have scored and could have scored more. I think it's just been one of those weeks where mentally it's been a tough ride for them. Medina scored her first goal since September. She's just back after taking a break because she took a break from country and club just because she burned out. That's what they were worried about. And there's still the ongoing battle whether it should be her or Manham in that number 9 position. I think last night showed that she is still one of Arsenal's top players. Can't expect her to really stay out the season, but I think they'll be happy enough considering everything that's going on in the background with a 1-1 result, but probably should have scored 1 or 2 more.
Yeah, Katie McCabe playing left back as well, moved to the right wing I think at one point.
Yeah, she moves around a lot with Arsenal, and like a lot of the time it's to do with injuries. I think like whenever she plays for Arsenal, I know we always talk about wanting her to play higher up in the Ireland squad. There just isn't that need for her in that position at Arsenal, so she does move around like left or right wing back.
That right wing back left footed thing is interesting. The Rovers have done that a lot. Shamrock Rovers in the men's game, and I find it a bit counterintuitive because it's almost certain that you're going to come in on your left then if you're on the right, as in like and can you defend as well in a right wing back's position if you're extremely left footed? I find it's been an evolution that has kind of baffled me a little bit, and Andy Lyons has gotten a move away on the basis of playing left wing back, which I wouldn't have seen, and then they would play Farrugia right wing back, who's very left footed. Yeah. And it's almost like if you come in field you're going to do more danger than going into crossing positions, which probably if you put up the stats you probably are, but it just throws out everything I thought I knew about football. Yeah. Play somebody who's extremely left-footed, right wing-back.
Yeah, well, I think with Katie and Arsenal, it's always been a case of, like, where do they actually need a player of her calibre more than her skill? And, like, the thing is, during a match, if it's her and Beth Mead on either side, they can swap quite a lot depending on, like, what's needed. So, I don't think they've necessarily always played her to her best position or her best skills at Arsenal. They just know that she is the sort of player that she can fill that hole, and she will do it very, very well.
A lot to be said for versatility. We got to go to Kevin Kilbane, who is coming in live.
A segue there.
Nice segue, yeah.
Imagine him playing right back.
Versatile Kevin Kilbane. Kev, good morning.
Good morning, Shane. You're right, Johnny. I analysed the France goal, the Australian goal that France conceded the other night, and it's interesting when you're seeing, I would have had it when I would have probably played on the right hand side. I played on the right wing a little bit in my time. But it's always funny when you're opening your body the other way around on your shoulder. It's so alien to lads when they go on the opposite side of the field. And as I said, I was doing Pavard's goal, and Pavard sees his guy, the guy that scored for Australia, on his outside initially, and then he gets attracted to the runner inside and doesn't once open his shoulder out as the move goes on. It was a great goal by Australia.
That was a lovely goal, yeah.
That's the sort of thing that you look at, little basic things like that happen in football, but it's the little minute detail, I think, at times that catches teams out.
You were Mr. Versatile, Kev, weren't you? Like you both footed to an extent.
Played midfield for a while.
Yeah, both flanks.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I actually played up front for Ireland once as well.
Did you?
Or not. Yeah, the only position I didn't play for Ireland was right back. I think it was right back was the only position I didn't play for Ireland. Yeah,
you didn't do goals either.
Who played? Goals have got well.
Who played you up front?
You will know that. Stan. Played up front under Stan. I didn't start the game up front, but I went maybe the last 30 minutes in a couple of games for Stan, yeah.
This is like Harry Maguire being thrown up front for United last minute. Although Kev
something like that. Goals. There was no quality. Like
Jerry Maguire being thrown up front. Hell. Funny enough, I can't remember that, but maybe the Stan era was... Yeah. How'd you get on?
I don't know. We didn't have a great time, did we, understand? I think we're chasing the game. I could have actually been San Marino. We did it in San Marino when Stephen Ireland scored later on. I think I was up front that game. There was another game, I think, as well. Yeah, I don't know. Do you know what, Johnny? I don't know. Honestly, God, I don't.
Kev, I know you've kind of spoken about the USA before and maybe where they're at or where they're not at. to an extent. England game this evening, which is a big one in Group B. It's great, some great photos in the paper, some nostalgic memories. Rob Green's howler against the USA to allow them to equalise in 2010 World Cup. Like, the USA will fancy a bit of a shock here, but I mean, the way England performed in the first game, it's hard to see it. It's hard to see it happening, is it?
I think England win all day long. I mean, prior to who was it? The Wales game, Greg Berhalter, the US coach, said that in this tournament, on our day, we can beat any side in the world. I think what he failed to mention is the rest of the teams need to have a really bad day if the US are going to go and beat them. They're not great at all.
There's the alarm.
Kev, you have to wake up. Get up for off the ball, Kev. Get up for off the ball.
Kev, wake up.
I know. That was the last one. That's my second alarm. That's the second call.
That is the most.
11 o'clock.
That is the most annoying. I know. I was just thinking this morning because I was waiting to get up. What is my alarm call?
Let me get it.
Go on, Kev. Go on.
I'm going to be really annoyed by this alarm. But what is it anyway? It's just like that particular alarm has to be the most annoying of them all.
It's my alarm too, but I hate it. I hate it, but it gets me up. It wakes me up like.
And my missus, she does that staggered, snooze. So it goes off about 10 times before I'm even thinking about getting up. I say, what a start to the day.
Kev's more than awake. He's got his Beatles t-shirt on and the whole lot as well. He's flying it this morning. He doesn't need the alarm. And you're 3 hours ahead, Kev. Is it not 11 a.m. there? Is it 3 hours ahead?
No, I know, but I'm still on. I'm still on Eastern time. It's still
fair.
4 in the morning or something like that, 3 in the morning. So this is where I've struggled with the times. I really have. I'm all over the place. Yesterday I was due to leave the hotel here at 12:30, and I only got to sleep about 5 o'clock after the night after the Canada game. We got back in quite late. It was maybe 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. We got back in, and then I was up till 5. Fell asleep. I got up about 12:30. Missed the bus that I had to get, and then I was like scratching around trying to catch an Uber. So I'm all over the place time wise.
Sounds like nothing has changed since you left Ireland, anyway.
Sliding.
Don't give anything away, Johnny. Come on.
Yeah. Sounds like, I mean, Southgate's on the back pages today. Kev warning of arrogance and making sure the players don't get complacent ahead of the USA game. Of course, he's going to say that. Sounds like he's going to go with the same starting team from the Iran game as well. Like, are there any weaknesses that the USA can target? Not really.
I think when you look at it, you probably have to say at the back, the US have a bit of pace. Pulisic up front's got a bit of pace. Doesn't do enough, in my opinion, when he gets into the final third. I don't think they've got enough up front, really, the US, to hurt England. They don't create enough chances. As I said, there's a load of energy. Tyler Adams and Musa were really good in the first games. I think everyone would know Adams at this stage. They've got energy. They play with energy in midfield especially, but I just don't think they've got enough up front. I probably expect Aronson to come in today. Gio Reyna from Dortmund was, I think Berhalter said he had a slight knock in that first game, so I expect him probably to be involved at some stage. And they could cause England problems at the back. But in saying that, I just think England going forward, Walker Zimmerman and Tim Ream at the back, they will not be able to stop Harry Kane. They'll have so much trouble. Saka's just been outstanding, not just this season, but the last maybe 18 months now. Saka's been terrific. I can't believe he's not starting forward, and that was a big surprise to me. I think he's England's best player. But Southgate had that at the Euros, didn't he? Where I felt as though that he was approaching games with a little bit more of a conservative approach and didn't necessarily want to fit his best players in. He was trying to get a formula that suited, and you can't argue with that really after the Iran game. I heard you guys just talking there. I think there was other circumstances that affected those Iran players. I don't expect them to be as bad in these next 2 games. But I do think Wales will beat them actually today. But in saying that, I just think England have got too much for the US. They should. I think they'll probably score 2 or 3 today. They may concede again, but I just can't see. I can't see anything but England getting 9 points from this group.
I thought Iran were so bad. I thought it was hard to judge England. Apart from the fact, Kev, I thought they'd look very vulnerable, England, in terms of just like. When there was a breakdown in play, Declan Rice, I didn't think had a great game. I thought defensively they didn't look great at all. In a game, in fairness, they were kind of always winning anyway. But for me,
Johnny Maguire was outstanding. Maguire was brilliant. I mean, for given the pressure he's under as well, and in that first game, and I know it was Iran, granted, but I think he's going to grow from that a little bit as well.
Possibly. I think today will tell us a lot more because, like, the US first half against Wales were very good, and I think this will tell us a lot more about England. You were almost half talking England up as potential winners in the Irish Times. I can't have it at all. I think they're way off.
I think if you're asking me before the tournament, I'm saying absolutely no chance. I can't see it. Watching Brazil last night, I think you and I both share the same opinion on Serbia, Johnny. Serbia could easily go and get 6 points from these next 2 games. Brazil's tempo they played at. If you watch Saudi Arabia against Argentina, it wasn't great football, but it was just the tempo they played at. Argentina couldn't deal with it. If you watch Tunisia in their game against Denmark, the tempo, it's almost the tone's been set for the tournament that the tournament hasn't really been great yet. I'd probably agree with that, but the tempo that maybe the one or two of the lesser teams are setting against the bigger nations is something they can't compete with. So I think Brazil will take some stopping, Johnny. I don't think England will win it. I don't. I think they're going to fall down. I think defensively, I think they're going to struggle maybe against one or two of the better teams. I think France up front, let's just see where Mbappe goes and things like that. But they've got issues, haven't they? Defensively, again, France, another injury to them. I think that might come back to bite France. And it just leads back to Brazil to me every single time, whichever way I turn. I can't see Brazil with the strength of squad they have, with the 26 players that they have. I just think Brazil will win it. I just can't see it, anything else.
How important, Kev, is a harmonious group? Because I'm looking at the Brazil team last night coming off the bus, and they're all singing and dancing, and there's a real sense of togetherness. Same with England. You're looking at the back pages and seeing them all laughing and joking together and training. Look, it's a photograph, you can't really tell, but there seems to be that vibe from this English camp. Saw a great story even before the World Cup from on the 2018 French win. During the tournament, Adil Rami, some of the teammates in the hotel waking him up, and he came out with the fire extinguisher, and the next morning Deschamps said, I'm not going to say anything, I'm just going to laugh it off, because there's a togetherness with this team, we need to keep it that way. Like, how important is that, Kev, at a tournament especially, to have that harmony? I suppose 2002 is an example of when it maybe goes the other way. But I mean, it's an important thing. If you want to win the tournament, you have to have a together group.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think you've seen it with other nations where we've had some of the top teams in past World Cups and Euros when they've turned up for a tournament, and you can see there's been friction within that camp, and they've fallen down. Maybe even not even getting out of the group at times. So yeah, I do think that it's a bit different, isn't it? This one, that they've only got that week anyway. They've not had the 3 or 4 weeks preparation, which it can become a bit stale within the camp. No matter what anybody says, you're away from home, you're away from your family, and you're away from the things that you become comfortable with. It can throw people off. Some players don't like that. I've come across lots of players that were like that just didn't necessarily like being away from home. So I think that week, is going to help a lot of sides. The 6 days or whatever it was, just to prepare for the tournament. I know Martinez has said recently, after they played against Canada the other night, just saying that we had no time to prepare. It's thrown us, but if you're looking at it mentally from the players, I think it'll help them as the tournament progresses, that they're not going to be away for 7 or 8 weeks. It'll only be a maximum of perhaps 4 or 5 going into if they get to a final like Brazil or whoever. So, yeah, I do think that that togetherness definitely does help. And the best teams over the years and in World Cups and everything, I think you probably generally find that they do have a lot of players within that squad that are all probably friends, I would say, friends for life almost, and that's the stories that seem to come out afterwards when teams win and do well in tournaments.
Wasn't that the thing about Brazil, Kev, though? They looked like they'd been in camp together. They looked like they knew exactly what their teammates were doing. Even the subs were like, when they came on, it was like interplay, and I fell for the Serb defenders with 10 minutes to go, where it's like, this isn't over.
They were dead, Johnny, weren't they? They were dead. They couldn't run. You could see the Serbian players. They were absolutely gone. And there's a couple of players from Serbia that I was actually surprised didn't start the game last night. I was watching. We've all seen a lot of Serbia, and I looked at the team that was put out, and I can't remember the left wing back now that didn't start, the 17. You might have that in front of you there. I can't remember his name off the top of my head now, but there was 2 or 3 players, and I was looking at it, and I was just thinking, why isn't he starting some of these? But anyway, I think he spoke of fitness issues around 1 or 2 players anyway coming into it. But Brazil, as I said, the tempo that they played with, and it could have been 5. And Serbia are a top side, by the way. They're a really, really good team. I think that I tipped them to get out of this group. I still think they will get out. It's going to come down to that last game against Switzerland. And if anyone remembers 2014, Shaqiri and Xhaka, with the tension that was going on around that game against the Serbs. So that'll come up again if there's something riding on that last game. It should be a great game if it comes down to that one. But overall, I just, as I said, what you're saying, Johnny, with Brazil, everyone, like the 15, 16 players that all played, unbelievable performance, unbelievable, especially the last 20 minutes of that game. Now, can they maintain that level of just intensity for the performance? That's what I'd look at. But Jesus, what a team they look. They look so good. And again, if England play against that, or even France, Spain even, I just don't think they're going to be able to compete with that real pace that they play at.
Dusan, was Vlahovic, Kev, that didn't start maybe for Serbia?
No, not Vlahovic.
No.
Vlahovic was one. I'm surprised he didn't start Vlahovic. It was the left wing back. 17, number 17 on the squad.
Let me see if I can find it here. Who else came on? Maximovic came on. Lazovic came on. Radonjic and Ilic. Ivan Ilic.
We'll go around this all day.
Yeah, we will.
He didn't come on. He didn't come on.
Okay, just to mark people's cards on the games today. So 10 a.m. is Wales, Iran. At 1 o'clock it's Qatar, Senegal in Group A. 4 o'clock Netherlands, Ecuador, and then the England USA game is at 7. Like that Wales game as well. And I mean, Gareth Bale, big game for him. He become most capped Welsh player of all time. He's overtaken Chris Gunter. I think it's 109 caps now for Bale. And the great story in the page of the papers this morning, Bale urges schools, let pupils watch. So there's this effort to get all of the schools in there's more than 1,000 schools in Wales have already signed up, expected to take part in Kimberley football Friday. So they're gonna, I guess back in our day it was wheel out the TV. I don't know what the modern equivalent is, but like, do you remember that as a kid, Kev? Like, what was your first World Cup watching moment? Like, I think 98 was probably the one where I properly got into it. But do you remember the first time you watched the World Cup and thought, yeah, this is for me? I'm
a bit older than you, Shane, of course. No, I remember 86 really well. I really remember 86. Maradona and everything that went with it. I fell in love with the game after Maradona. It was one of those things. It was different times. Italian 90 means so much to me because I remember getting in from school at 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, whatever it was. You were racing home from school to watch one of the afternoon games. They were special memories from an Irish perspective in my mind. But 86 was great. I remember watching, Correca, Josimar at that World Cup, and watching Joel Batz in goal for France. I always remember Rats, who was playing for Russia. Then in one game, it was Rats against Bats in goal. Little memories that come back to you in your head from when you were a kid. So 86 and Maradona and everything that Maradona did at that World Cup, I fell in love with football. I did, and all I wanted to do after that was play in a World Cup. That was pretty much it from my own point of view. Yeah.
Kevin, like this. My cousins in Coventry, they had like it would have been my father's first cousin, and they all immigrated like Kev's dad did, and they went over to Coventry, had kids, and their kids were a little bit older than us, so when their jerseys were a little bit too big, they'd flog them back to us second hand, and we were delighted to get them, kind of working class family in East Galway. And I was given this crude O'Neill's Argentina jersey with Maradona on the back, and I didn't know the difference. I scored 3 goals in that morning. I remember in school I scored 3 goals, and I never scored because I felt $1 million. And that's what Maradona, I don't even know what year that was. That was probably around 1990, give or take. But the whole Maradona thing as a kid, Kev, and you were a little bit older than me. Yeah. What he did for football and what he did for little kids to think like that, this is the game I want to play, I suppose.
I know, it's true. It's exactly what it did for me. And it's not, of course, I remember vividly, obviously, the handball goal. I remember the run against England and that. I heard you talking about Richarlison being the best goal ever scored in a World Cup, but nothing beats Maradona against England. Nothing will ever beat that goal.
Except the one against Belgium.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's what I was going to say. I was going to come off the back of that. Throughout that World Cup, if you watch the Maradona documentary that was on a couple of years ago, and you see the level of performance he was putting in every single game, 3 men marking him,
and the kicking
and
he
that's
got,
when you
Kev,
could really when you kick him, you could kick the shy out of him. It was unbelievable, honest to God. What he suffered in every single game, and that was every game for his club when he first moved to Barcelona, when he was in Italy. You can only imagine what he faced in Italy. Just what a player, and he changed the landscape for so many of us in watching football. I think he changed football in many respects because we had this player doing what he was doing every single game, and all of a sudden then TV then boomed off the back of it, didn't he? And I think that's when everyone was then glued through the 90s, as we all know, watching Italian 90. That's when it became a lot more relevant for us as Irishmen. But that's when everything changed for us. But just going back to your point there as well on the TVs in the classroom and things like that when they're getting rolled in. I'm actually hearing it, honestly. I mean, in Canada now, and I don't want to go back and start harping on about things like this, but Canada falls way down the pecking order in soccer terms. There's probably 4 or 5 sports easily ahead. And what we're hearing, I think we're getting a huge audience for an afternoon kickoff in Canada. I think it was 3-4 o'clock kickoff in the afternoon in Canada the other day. Huge audience. These guys who nobody knows about. Everyone knows of Alphonso Davies. Everybody maybe is starting to learn about Jonathan David now. But no one knows any of the other guys in the team. Nobody. And now all of a sudden, all these kids, we're hearing schools rolling the TVs in, so the kids are watching the soccer games in school. It's absolutely unheard of. And it's great now that, we talk about legacies from World Cup. And I heard Johnny talking about the Qatari World Cup and legacies and things like this. Might not necessarily be the case here, granted, but it does have a meaning in other parts of the world. And that is hopefully what we're going to see in Canada with the next World Cup in 2026 being there. I'm hoping 4 years down the line, there's a real buzz ahead of that, going into games being played over there in Canada.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. The legacy might not be in Qatar, but it'll be elsewhere, like the bank holiday in Saudi Arabia and things like that. The people in Saudi Arabia are never going to forget that game against Argentina, regardless of what happens from here on. Filip Kostic, left wing back for Serbia, according to
Kostic. Yeah, how he didn't start the game. He was a regular all the way through for Serbia. Yeah, I didn't understand his team selection, but there was obviously issues there. But I still fancy Serbia somehow. I think Serbia are a top side.
Finally, Kev, the news, I don't know if you've seen it overnight, Oisin Mullen has accepted a position to play with the Geelong Cats. Mayo GA has announced the move on social media, wishing him the best in his new endeavour, thanking him for all the memories. 2-time Young Footballer of the Year. As a club, we appreciate the magnitude of moving overseas. This is Geelong, and understood Oisin's reasons for remaining in Ireland and not joining us for this season. Kev, remains to be seen what Lee Keegan is going to do in terms of retiring or not retiring and staying on for next year. But this regardless, Oisin Mullen heading off to Oz is a bit of a blow for Mayo and Kevin McStay.
It is. There's going to be retirements anyway, I think, and I think we all hope Lee Keegan does carry on. But you only get, as I was going to say there, you only get one crack at it. He had a chance to go last summer and decided to maybe to stay back and just to have another crack at the All Ireland, which didn't work out. But I just think we all wish him all the best. It's still going to be a hard road for him to go and succeed over there in Australia. But good luck to him. He's been incredible. He's a young man with so much potential, and I think he's got everything within him as an athlete and everything to go and succeed over there in Australia. So good luck to him. In Mayo terms, I think Kevin McStay, you can't replace him at the moment. There's nobody else right now to step in and replace him. So it's going to be a huge void.
Yeah, fair play to him. Big loss for Mayo, but massive boost for Geelong Cats. Of course, he joins Zach Toohey and Mark O'Connor over there. Kev, great stuff as always. We'll check in again. Enjoy the games today.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks, Johnny. All the best, boys.
Great stuff, Kevin Kilbane there over in Qatar. Right, FIFA and football fans, watch out for this. Virgin Media is hosting a game for Ireland, which will see Irish football legends David Myler and Stephanie Roach take on Ireland's top esports football players and Team Wild athletes at 5 p.m. on Tuesday next, 29th of November. The game will be live streamed on Twitch and takes place in Cork City FC's Turner's Cross Stadium, all powered by Virgin Media Broadband, 99.9% broadband reliability. After this short ad break, we're with Alan Quinlan live from Cork.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
OTB Sports Rugby.
Andy Farrell was almost giddy
at
the late with
he wants everything thrown at them as much as possible before the World Cup.
I couldn't have planned this better.
This could happen.
Maybe he did.
I'd be lying if I said that World Player of the Year passing me by was a disappointment for sure, and one that I look back that 2009 was probably my year.
Subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
Are you a sports fanatic who loves to travel? Then sportspass.ie is for you. Log on for the chance to win the trip of a lifetime in 2023 to a top global sporting event. 8 winners get to choose from 12 incredible prizes, including trips to the Women's World Cup in Australia, the Super Bowl, the Masters and WrestleMania. All prizes include return flights, accommodation and tickets for 2 people from anywhere in the world. That's sportspass.ie. You win, you choose.
OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent modes.
19 minutes past 8 on Friday's OTB AM with myself and Johnny Ward. Delighted to say Alan Quinlan joins us on the line now. Morning, Quinny. How are things?
Morning, lads. Good. Thanks, Shane. All good.
What are your World Cup memories? Your earliest World Cup memories, Quinny, when you thought you might play a proper sport?
Jesus.
Well, you say proper sport. I loved soccer growing up.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a World Cup memory. It was. I'll give you a World Cup one in a minute. But the first big soccer memory was, and I've said this before, and off the ball, was Ray Houghton's goal at Euro '88.
Yes.
Wow.
And then obviously Italia '90, his goal there as well. I nearly got there. I was trying to scramble a few quid together to get to America. There was a possibility that a neighbour was going to bring me, but never happened. But
you could set up a GoFundMe page now, you know.
Could have, yeah. But back then it was much harder. Now there was no such thing as GoFundMe. It was the neighbours, maybe your friends or relations you could rely on if you wanted to go anywhere. But look, I that Ray Houghton goal against Italy in Italia '90, those are the ones, the two, you know, the really special memories, those ones. And I remember them well and being glued to it. The John Aldridge incident with Jack Charlton when Mexico beat them 2-0 and he couldn't get on the field. Unbelievable, yeah. I was so into it back then.
Class moments.
You took the wrong path in life, but anyway, here we are.
I wasn't good enough for the soccer, Johnny.
Quinny turned out all right, let me tell you.
And most of the Tipperary hurling people said, well, the fellas who weren't good enough for the hurling started playing rugby. So
here we are.
Anyhow.
Yeah. We should touch. We'll talk about the URC, of course, this weekend. But I mean, Quinny, the Ronan O'Gara suspension has taken a lot of headlines this week. His fourth suspension, by the way, since November of 2021. So 10 weeks. A bit of a fine as well thrown in there, 15,000. I mean, it's disappointing for Ronan. We obviously don't know what was said on the sidelines. It's different in France, I guess, where the head coaches can be down pitch side as opposed to up in the nosebleeds. So it's disappointing for Ronan.
It is, and I think I kind of giggled at the last one because, but not this one. I think, look, it's obviously very disappointing for him, and I know him so well. He's very passionate. He's fiery. He really cares about his team, and he's engrossed in that. And obviously, he's got to be more careful. I think this wasn't a sideline incident, or talking to referees after a game or during. This was feedback he sent back to the head of the referees in France, and did it through the proper channels, but probably. Didn't say it in a way that obviously said it in a way that got himself into trouble. So, and it's probably on the back of the other incidents where he's had a few clashes and he's spoken about referees, and so it's not good for him. It's obviously very disappointing. It's pretty severe punishment as regards the length of time that he'll not be able to be on the sideline or involved in match day. The match day preparations and the fine as well. So, particularly in the week that he's been linked with a possible job with England, but I think he's always going to be linked with any big jobs that come up now in the game. But that's disappointing, and it'll be obviously he can't say a lot about it himself. But I did speak to him about it, and he's kind of obviously frustrated, but. I think knowing that he needs to just handle things a little bit differently, and I think with Rassi's videos and what's happened there, I think everybody is very mindful of it, and maybe that didn't help the situation with the French referees either. But we've got to respect the referees. We don't always agree with their decisions, and he has to be just more careful in how he sends that feedback back if he's frustrated. It's emanated from incidents in the Toulouse game that they played, that they lost 26-17. So not great news for him, but he's got to either decide now to appeal or get on with it. And how will it affect his team? Who knows? I think he's still able to train them every week, but it's just being up close and personal with him on match day is he's not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, the statement said he was suspended for, quote, harming the best interests of rugby. It didn't specify when this incident happened, but the only match Ronan O'Gara has coached since the previous ban apparently was against Brive on November 5th. So the sanction will last until January 30th. This 10 weeks. He can, as you said, Quinny, appeal it. Leaves him out of the Heineken Champions Cup pool games. But I mean, as you said, the England links are there. The lads were talking on the show during the week, trying to imagine a world where Ireland are playing England in a Six Nations match. Ronan O'Gara is the head coach of England. He's up there wearing the rose. Last minute drop goal or penalty for England to win it, and he's kissing the badge.
I can't. Can
you imagine it, Quinny?
I can't see it.
It's hard to picture it, but if I was in his shoes, you probably say, "No, I'd never do that. I'd never do that. I'd never do that," until there's actually a piece of paper on the table or there's a concrete offer and people are starting to talk about it, and then you kind of go, unless it's one where you're kind of Roy Keane-esque and you go, well, you just don't ever do that. Manchester United players don't ever go to Man City or Liverpool, or the way he's so determined. If he says it, he would stick to it. Initially I was like, God, I wonder will that happen. But then we've got, Andy Farrell, who's an English guy coaching Ireland, and Mike Catt as well. So should the individual kind of restrict his opportunity or the possibility of having success? Conor O'Shea was with England. It's strange. I met Conor O'Shea a number of times when he was involved with England, working with them over the years, involved with their 20s last year. And it's strange when you meet them, you're kind of gone. You have to kind of give yourself a little nudge. Yeah, you have to give yourself a little nudge that they're actually involved with England because of the history and the rivalry. But then the other side of it thinks, if I was in that situation, I was, say, a forwards coach or something like that in coaching, and I got offered the English job. Yeah, there's a lot to think about, but from a career prospect point of view, it's the top of the game, and he said it himself. No matter what way they do in between, at nearly every World Cup, they're a chance of possibly winning it. So it would be very strange, but I wouldn't rule it completely out. And he hasn't really gone into any detail with me in it for any listeners or anyone thinking that there's a scoop on this. But I know from him that he would certainly look at the offer and look at the situation if one did materialise.
Could they make him an offer he can't refuse?
Well, that's the thing for me, Johnny. I was just thinking, they write a number down on a piece of paper. Well, then a lot of patriots and passionate Irish people's, their heads could be swayed very quickly and say, look, I'll weather the storm here and the bit of grief I'm going to get.
Take the dirty 4 years
then. Yeah. Well, there's lots of Irish went over to England back in the day to feed their families and make a living and stuff, and took the English pound. But look, I don't know. Obviously, it's different if you had a couple of offers on the table and the other offers were different and not the English job. But if the English job comes on the table as a standalone offer, he has to consider it and he has to look at it. And I'm not saying I'd be over the moon to see Rog coach in England, but I'd be happy for him as personally, whatever decision he makes. And maybe it would be strange, but I think I wouldn't knock him for considering it and looking at the offer, because you've got to it's a short kind of career and it can change very quickly, and it's not like football management where the money is off the charts and you get a 2 or 3 year contract in football and soccer, English Premiership soccer, and as a manager, as a player, and you make lots and lots and lots sizable money that can change your whole life. Even though the salaries would be decent for international coaches, it's not life changing, but it still would be significant. And I think they're the one union that could put an offer on the table that could sway you and make you look at it.
I think the talk is that he's on this 3-man shortlist with Scott Robertson and Steve Borthwick, so remains to be seen whether...
I would imagine, Shane, they'd try and put the two of them together,
right?
Scott Robertson and or even the three of them together, because you look at Robinson being head coach, Raj assistant or backs, skills, defence, whatever.
But can you take, is it tough for Raj then to take, like, and he kind of hinted at this last week almost, that, once you've been a head coach, as he is with La Rochelle, it's quite difficult to then go and take an ego hit and be the number 2 or an assistant coach or whatever.
Yeah, you look at what Stuart Lancaster did and being an England head coach, and it didn't work out, and he lost his job after the World Cup in 2015, was kind of thrown under the bus, really. And for him to come back into the game, it was a perfect scenario to be an assistant coach and get his kind of mojo back for coaching. And obviously he's done a fantastic job with Leinster over the years. And now he's going to Racing as a head coach. So, yeah, I think to go back, and make the decision to go back is dependent, particularly when you take that top job and you're in control. But I'll tell you, there's a hell of a lot of work in being the top the head coach. There's so much more to it than the assistant, even though there's still, you've got a lot of work, but you've got to drive the whole organisation and make a lot more decisions. So when you get a taste of it, obviously he says he loves it and he likes being in control and he likes controlling the destiny of his own team. So going back as an assistant, who knows? It might, but I would imagine they would, if they were trying to get a package here, the 3 guys that are being linked, the 3 of them together would be a brilliant package for England.
Just from the outside looking in, what he's done at La Rochelle, to go over to a country where they speak a foreign language, obviously, and to get them to the level that he has, like how seismic is that in World Rugby?
It's big. It's very big, Johnny. And I think he obviously going to Racing when he retired for a couple of years helps the whole situation, because France is very... They sometimes they don't see beyond France, and if you can crack it in France and earn the respect of the players and the other clubs and the other coaches, and I think it makes life a little bit easier, that whole perception and more accepting. There's lots of good coaches over the years who've gone to clubs in France and struggled and it hasn't worked out long term because the culture is different and it's to kind of get under that level of the individual and get that connection with them can be challenging sometimes. And they always have incredible talent. You just look at the French national team now. I think one of the big issues for a long time was coaching structures and fitness levels for the national players. Obviously incredible individual talent, but what Galtier has done, Sean Edwards, even as they've got him incredibly fit, they've got him really well coached, and they've won the players over, and the players loved that, and they were kind of in the last 10 years where we haven't seen success previous to obviously winning a Grand Slam in the last Six Nations. There was they hadn't won in 10, 12 years a Grand Slam or a championship, and France were poor a lot. And it's similar with the clubs. You could play, I think with the exception probably of Toulouse, Clermont and Racing for a number of years there where they were challenging in Europe. There's probably 3 or 4 clubs that you think they have it pretty much right as regards, the attitude, players buying into, Europe and the top 14 and being really consistent and good. For him to go there and kind of do it with La Rochelle, where they'd never won a major trophy, to win the European Cup, to be in the final the previous year when John O'Gibbs was there, obviously as well, and come close in the league to they lost both finals to Toulouse the previous year. To do that is very impressive, and I know from talking to Bernard Jackman and Mike Prendergast, when you kind of break it in France. But it helps with Ronan O'Gara, doesn't it? Because he's got that respect from playing and that. But it still doesn't guarantee you success. And I think the players respect him and like him. And he's got himself in a little spot of bother now. But I think the club and the fans love what he did last year, and we saw those scenes. So it is very impressive. But he started, Johnny, on that journey of doing it with wrestling first and trying to learn and get into that culture and understand it. Obviously learning the language pretty quickly and then going to New Zealand and coming back again. So yeah, he's earned that respect, I suppose, and that makes a huge difference.
He's building his CV to be the Ireland manager, and England is just that's final step on the ladder, like to be the Ireland manager.
That's the way I like to.
Well, I think with Andy Farrell, obviously,
we have an English coach. Yeah, you have to remember
signing the new contract. It's there's no, that position is, who knows what Andy Farrell will do in 2025. He could be there for another number of years. He's done an incredible job. The problem is now, does Ronan go in as an assistant somewhere along the line? Would he get involved with Ireland? Does he take one of the provinces? Well, who knows? But
Rory O'Connor made the point here, I think it was Rory, during the week in the Irish Independent, talking about the fact that the IRFU should be pulling out all the stops to ensure that O'Gara is signed up somewhere. I think
but what do they do? What do they do? Just
get rid of someone,
bring him back in,
create a job for him.
Create a job. I don't know. I think and there was a mention of David Nusafora's job and stuff like that. He wants to coach. He wants to be involved in that kind of adrenaline rush every weekend. I think.
What would be his biggest where would Munster and Ireland lie in his aspirations then?
I'd say right up there, Johnny. Like, I think ultimately, but he's under no illusions. I think, Munster, he's been linked with Munster, and, even when Johan van Gran was leaving this time last year, when it was announced in December last year, he was immediately linked with the job. Was in his first season as head coach with La Rochelle. But I think, for any of us, that kind of Munster blood will always be there. But from a selfish point of view, I think Munster are in transition, and he was here, started a project with La Rochelle, so the project or the timing of it just wasn't right for him, particularly when he had been in La Rochelle as an assistant for the previous 2 seasons, and now he was getting an opportunity. He didn't want to give that up, so he was proven right, because La Rochelle's development or position was in a much stronger place than where Munster are, and the change that's happening there now. So they obviously had strength, depth, quality right across the board, and experience, and older players who were able to challenge for Europe. So I think his aspirations would be, I think someday, yes, of course, I would see him. I would love to see him coach in Munster and be the head man in Munster.
Just very, very briefly, Quinny, just looking ahead to the URC this weekend, we've Ulster Zebra tonight at 7:35, Leinster versus Glasgow tomorrow at 3:15, and then tomorrow night is, I guess, the big one from an Irish interest, the Interpro between Munster and Connacht at 7:35. Anything you're particularly looking forward to seeing this weekend?
Well, we've given 20 minutes talking about Rog, so Rog will be fine, and he probably won't ever take the English job. So the listeners needn't worry about that. I think obviously the biggest game is the Munster Connacht game, and that's the one that stands out. It's great to see Ulster play Zebra tonight, and with Ian Henderson coming back, that's an important one for me. I think he's been very, very unfortunate with injury in recent times, and I think he's very, very important to Ireland going forward. So hopefully he can, get some game time and get back for Ulster, who've done remarkably well. I think, they've only lost one game. That was to Leinster, and they're second in the league. So, you think they're going to win tonight. Zebra haven't won any game in the league so far. Leinster, Glasgow tomorrow, it's a bit of an unknown what kind of teams will be picked there. But the Munster Connacht one is, I think both sides are, and Connacht people would say Munster 14th in the table, Connacht are 12th. Both Munster find themselves in a fight now to be not really talking about playoffs, but qualifying for Europe. I think is nearly more important, even though one will go hand in hand with the other. But they're obviously they've won 2 games, lost 5. Connacht are 1 point ahead of them in the league, but a win for either side could push them up to 6th or 7th in the league, depending on results. And given what happened a number of weeks ago in round 4, where Connacht beat Munster 20 points to 11 in the sports ground, again, there was both sides were under similar pressure. They hadn't won a game at that stage. They'd lost their, the poor results in those first 3 games. This one is a real kind of potential humdinger, if you like, as regards there's been a bit of a bite in this game, and obviously it's Munster being at home, and given the position they're in, the kind of question is, can they build off that South Africa performance that they had in Páirc Uí Chaoimh a couple of weeks ago and get themselves a result?
Yeah, momentum is a real thing. It remains to be seen if they can keep that going. But Munster, Connacht tomorrow evening, 7:35, as Quinny said. Leinster, Glasgow, 3:15 tomorrow, and then Ulster Zebra is the game tonight at 7:35. Quinny, great stuff as always. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
Anna Quinlan there with us on a Friday, as per usual. Some great stories in the papers, Johnny. People are describing the USA-England game tonight as the James Corden derby. Whoever loses has to take him.
You're not having you want him cordoned off from society. You're having that one.
I see what you did there, Johnny.
Yeah. Better than that Brazilian one.
That's, to be fair.
He does. I mean, we've all, or certainly I, have been subject to a lot of vilification on social media.
Oh Jesus!
And it's not nice, but the big man gets a lot of it.
He does.
And he's a big
yeah,
man.
Like the Gavin and Stacey days, I think he was quite a liked figure. And then some stories come out, whether they're true or not, I don't know. But stories about him in restaurants and airplanes and all the rest, But
not having the big man.
The James Corden derby has been built. There's a great one. I kind of touched on it earlier on, but story of the games between USA and England in the past. Rob Green was quoted that 1-1 draw in the opening match in 2010, but there was another great game. So this was the 1950 World Cup. So England had a fancy team: Billy Wright, Tom Finney, Stan Mortensen, and the USA team were amateurs. So Frank Borghi was their goalkeeper, former baseball player. He drove a hearse for his day job, needed his defenders to take the goal kicks because he never kicked the ball. He didn't know how to kick the ball. But I mean, just some of the England all over them for the first 20 minutes. And there was interviews done in 2010 to kind of mark that game in the first World Cup. The winning goal, 30th minute, scored by Joe Gaetjens, a Haitian-born dishwasher from New York. Went on to play professionally in France. I mean, it was just...
I was like, how was he a dishwasher? Oh, he actually washed dishes.
He wasn't
a dishwasher. He wasn't actually a dishwasher. He was a dishwasher. If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yeah. But
it's a great anecdote.
That's brilliant. Some great stories from that. And Gaetjens' life ended in tragedy. He was arrested in Haiti in July 1964 by the Tonton Macoute, the militia of the dictator François Papa-Doc Duvalier, and never seen again. This is the guy who scored the winner in the 1950 World Cup for the USA against England. So just a mad history between the two teams. But
the sort of thing that essentially still goes on in Saudi Arabia, where the 2030 World Cup might be. Yeah, I mean,
that's another thing. I mean, it's funny because when you think of that, you think, well, FIFA are more than capable of giving the 2030 World Cup to Saudi Arabia, because a lot of people calling for it to be in, I think there's a conglomerate of countries, Uruguay being one of them, because of course it'll be the 100th anniversary of the first ever World Cup in Uruguay. So a few of those nations in South America coming together to launch a bid. I know there are other bids as well, but I mean, the Saudi bid, you almost now just at this stage expect the Saudi bid to win. Now, that's not to say, Saudi Arabia has a young population, a large proportion under the age of 35 who love football, and they at least, unlike Qatar, have a football culture. Do you know,
they have a big population. It would make a lot of sense apart from the fact that it's a horrible despotic regime.
Exactly.
But I mean, who cares about that?
Well, yeah.
We could bring democracy, could we, Mohammed bin Salman? And maybe that's what Infantino's thinking. I'll have a chat with him at the opening game, and the Qatari Emir beside me. Maybe I'll be able to butter him up and bring democracy to the Saudi dynasty.
That's even when you're watching the Saudi Arabia Argentina game and you're seeing the Saudi flag, the green with the sword, the executioner sword, and you're like, This is insane. If the World Cup is in Saudi Arabia in 2030, you'll have fans. There'll probably be a fan area set up in the Chop Chop Square, which is this infamous square where beheadings happen all the time. There's probably beheadings this weekend in Riyadh. I mean,
there were a scatter, I think, just going into the World Cup. Yeah,
it's
Sam
just
McDonald in his piece, but no, Mohammed, he loves football, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Just bring people through the couple of the back pages. I mean, the wonder goal, as I said, is is taking a lot of them. The Irish Daily Mail, Richarlison won a strike lights up World Cup. Brazilian. Are you having that one?
Playing your Brazilian?
Yeah, Brazilian of them. Yeah, that's not bad. Ronaldo's record with goal in 5th tournament, and touching on it with Quinny there, of course. O'Gara voices interest in taking England job. Leaving the door open, Ronan O'Gara saying it will be an exciting opportunity. The RFU currently in the process of sourcing a successor to Eddie Jones. He's leaving his post of England head coach, of course, after the World Cup next year. The back page of the Star. Red Apple tech giants have their eye on United. Apple interested in buying Manchester United in a stunning €6.75 billion deal. We'll see if that happens. Tyler, spiders scare me more. USA skipper Tyler Adams saying he is more afraid of spiders than facing England in today's World Cup showdown. So loads of stories. We'll get back to a few of those in the back pages across the show. But 8:45 approaching on Friday morning's OTB AM. We had the very sad news that came in yesterday. That the former GA president and Monaghan manager Sean McCague had passed away at the age of 77. Beloved, I know he was much loved husband of Bernie and his daughters as well, Paula, Nuala, Martha, Frida and Emma. Plenty of sons-in-law, grandchildren as well. So really, really sad day for the GA. We have on the line now to pay tribute to Sean's life and career the former Monaghan player and legend as well, Eugene Nudie Hughes, and the Scottstown manager and a nephew of Sean's, David McCague. Morning, lads. How are things?
Morning, Shane. David.
Thanks a million for joining us, lads. And look, first off, condolences to both of you, of course. This is yesterday was a sad day for the GA, for Monaghan GA in general. David, I know it must be so tough for yourself and the family to process this. I know Sean's had an illness for the last number of years, but a really sad day, and it's kind of inspiring to see some of the stories being shared about him since he's passed away as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose that's the overriding emotion, Shane, is sadness, but one of pride as well. When we see the impact that he had on so many lives and so many people. I think one of the words that have been used mostly around Sean over the last few days has been leader, and the leadership qualities that he possessed. And I know there's a huge industry developing around leadership coaching and leadership modelling over the last few years. I suppose I've been lucky on reflection in my time knowing Sean that I suppose I got a live lesson in leadership and modelling leadership values through his vision, his inspiration, but most of all I suppose his value of people. And I think that's something that the warmth that he showed towards other people and the influence that he weighed on those people, and always positive influence. And I suppose how he made them feel was how he communicated that influence. And again, that's something that's come to light not only the last few days, but the last few years, reflected on his influence on us as a family and as us as a community in the Scotstoun GA Club and in Monaghan, the Monaghan GA circles, but also nationally as well. That just that warmth of personality, that gravitas that he had, that attracted people to him. And then once you were attracted into Sean's presence, he could elevate you to a sense of and a feeling that really, I suppose, lifted you, and that was a real personal quality of his that I haven't seen in too many others.
Just reading there the tributes today, David, it was like to be a good man manager, there's no manual. Like, it's not like, because if it's contrived, you'll be able to see through that. Like, what were the qualities that made him such a natural, I guess, man manager and a natural inspiration to everyone?
Yeah, I suppose first of all it was his genuineness. He had a genuine interest in people, and that was evident in all his interactions with people. Actually, Johnny, you mentioned man management, and maybe Nudie might speak to this, but there's a huge investment in sports psychology at the moment. And it's when Nudie started out back in the 70s. I know their own team here in Scotland in 74 was a breakthrough championship. That Sean was the manager, but he's also the sports psychologist. And I say that I suppose that ability to elevate other people and give them a sense of their own self-esteem and their own self-worth, and that transcended into their performance in the field. And again, I had a brief taste of myself. He took over a very unfancied Scotstoun team in 2004. That was post his time as GA president. That was again his humility as well, to go back to the coalface, to take on, as like I said, an unfancied senior team. And Blaney, that was Nudie's club, were sort of the kingpin at the time. I remember we beat Blaney in the championship, and again, for me as a young player, this was something I could only dream of. But Sean, I suppose, you dealt in as his inspiration, and he had that vision and belief and genuine belief that this unfancied Scotstoun team could take on the likes of Castleblaney at that time. And I think that was the psychology that he used us as young men at that time. Was, I say, a lesson in motivation and a lesson in leadership. So his man management skills went down to that genuine belief in people and in their qualities, and a sense of place as well. Like Sean managed Scotstoun, he managed Monaghan. he had no real ambition to manage anywhere else, even though he did do a stint with Eugene McGee with the Irish team. But I say just that sense of place and his belief in the people of his own place was really powerful.
That leadership, it was certainly paramount when it came to Sean, and obvious. I know, David, you're the principal now in St McCartan's College in Monaghan, and Sean for many years was principal in Sculwara St Mary's National School. He was my own principal for a couple of years as well. Like, one of those people, when he spoke, you listened. Like, even Nudie, from your perspective, as David was saying there, I mean, he was the manager of Monaghan through such a successful period, and you were a pivotal part of that team as well. Came on board, I think, in 78, wins the Ulster Championship in 79, does it again in 85 and 88, Division 1 national title in 85. Like David was talking there about the sports psychology element, diet and nutrition and just being ahead of the curve seemed to be a big thing with Sean as well. It's hard to believe that 1979 he was thinking of things like diet and nutrition.
Yes, it's amazing now, because there's a fortune we made now in psychology and all in the sports arena, but Sean's time will be very clear and very definite in his leadership role, because his presence in the dressing room, it inspired you, because when he talked, you listened. And like when we were doing our training program, like it was the old way. The system in Monaghan up until 1977 was 5 selectors. When Sean came in, the county agreed 1 man, 1 vice, with a couple of selectors, and we had a setback in 78, which was a learning curve for Sean too, as well as the team. And 79, that was all rectified by Sean, and the training programs he read up on.
It's mad, and like, you just wanted. What was he like in the dressing room? Like, was it a case of man management? Was he a kind of a gentle manager, or was there times where you maybe didn't want to cross him?
Yes, it's like everything else. Managers are there to manage, not to be liked. Sean knew the right buttons to push on key players. When things were going down, he could always talk to the players at half time individually and as a group, but inspire the players that led other players. The old story is, it's not how good you are, it's how good you make the players around you. And in our case, Sean done that nicely. He knew the buttons to press on key players. And the 3 times that Sean came back, the 3 times we were in Ulster, unfortunately, it worked out well for a lot of us. And it's unfortunate we met Munster each time we won Ulster. And we were very unlucky. He was instilling belief into the players, but some of the players, because it was Kerry, they were waiting for the rebound to Kerry, and it did come back, but there wasn't enough players believed that could actually beat this great Kerry team, and we almost stepped across the line. And that was the one thing we always talked about after when Sean, when we meet up. It was the fact that those couple of decisions changed the fortune of Monaghan football. We performed very well, played very well, but we didn't cross the line, and that was all. And even lately on the chance we need to, we almost got there, but we just failed in that final kick.
This is 85, yeah. This is when you're taking on Miko's great team, and brought them to replay, was it?
In 85, the replay, and we had our chances. The one thing we had against Kerry, we won more possession, but they were able to neutralise us in possession-wise and convert what they had. They took their chances. We just missed out on it. But like everything else, there's no reruns in a match like that. You get your opportunity, you take it. And Sean was always inspiring players to exert what they have on the field, in the training field, to go out and perform it on the day. And that's one thing that he led from the Scottish club to the Irish team, and most of all to Monaghan, where he really lifted the players. Every time he came back in, players responded, because in 88, Jerry McCabe and myself were slightly put on a few extra pounds in winter. We wintered well, as the old saying goes. And I remember we trained on a Sunday morning on New Year's Day, and it was a 15-minute run, and I think I lasted 3 minutes 30-something seconds, and Jerry must have read about 7 minutes. And come Tuesday night in St McCartan's, he put the weighing scales in front of the players in the field, and he says, right, Nudie and Jerry up in front of us, he says, we're not going to win anything unless you boys are fit. And we responded, and Niall Minor, very dedicated, notified everything. And the the rest is history. We produced the performance to win that. And again, up against Cork, we failed. But the one thing that Sean did in that time was we qualified for the National League for the playoffs that stage. That's why we generated our funds for the county. We qualified up to 10 years for the quarterfinals and semi-finals of the National League, which was phenomenal for the team we had. And we weren't the Down or the Cabin of us. We were Monaghan. And we won a national title, our first national title, and it was absolutely fantastic. And that was the cornerstone you could say about Sean McCague. His legacy is respect, and respect all those around you. You perform on the day. The one thing you have to prepare well, and in doing that, Sean had dealt that in detail to us. And we story in '79 where he was looking that wee bit of edge on teams to get into the playoff, to make sure on the day of a match he came out with the glucose sweet. It was instant energy into the bloodstream, and never forget, he gave this sweet to us before the match goes out. Boys, it'll give you that wee bit edge. And even though it didn't to some players, you felt when you took this, it was, you were doing the right thing to get that edge, and that's what Sean was looking, that edge to step across.
It's the psychology of it, I suppose, more than anything. Like David, just reading some of the tributes to Sean since his passing, like big family, and I know a staunch family man as well too, Sean, by all accounts. Reading that he donated a kidney as well to his brother Gabriel back in the early 80s, like 2 brothers of 7 in a family of 10. So I mean that kind of speaks volumes of the man as well.
It does, yeah. And even just as I'm reflecting on my comments earlier on, it was genuine interest in people. I suppose he got that from his mother, ran a bar and a shop in Scotstoun village. Her husband was a guard and spent a lot of time away, and so his mother was, say, a natural people's person as well. I suppose that's where he learned his values, and those values, transcend the whole family. I suppose Nudie mentioned legacy, and Sean has a fantastic legacy locally and around the county and nationally as well. But I think his greatest legacy are his children and his girls, and the way they have carried themselves over the last number of years through his illness. And I suppose they, I was looking and talking to a few of them last night, and it really resonated with me. I suppose their joie de vivre and their fun and fairness, and those are the 2 characters that I associate maybe most with Sean. He was fantastic company, fantastic fun to be around, and they're the same, and his grandchildren as well. And so his legacy will live on through them, and it'll impact on our club and our community for generations to come through those people.
It's mad because then he had a separate legacy as well, aside from his incredible coaching career, and as you said, he was part of the international rules setups as well. But first Monaghan man to be GA president from 2000 to 2003, and a key role in a number of different initiatives. I suppose one of the most memorable, David, was Rule 21. So this course rule banning members of the British security forces from playing GA, and he overturned that. And it was this is only a couple of years after the Good Friday Agreement, but I know Sean probably had to deal with a lot of stern opposition to even reversing that up in Ulster especially, but he got it done, and that's something that strikes me about Sean, that as GA president he got things done.
Yeah, and I suppose I remember at that time that was a particularly, I suppose, emotive issue around, I suppose, the border counties at that time. And so Sean, as an Ulster man, I suppose engaging with the 6 counties in Northern Ireland was a very difficult one for him personally. But again, he believed in fairness. I suppose he's a man of his time in terms of context, and he knew that the context and that things were shifting in Northern Ireland, and the GA, I suppose, a massive community partner, and the major sporting body in the country had a role to play. And I think that he on reflection, it was a major move of the GA at the time, and it took huge leadership. And he showed that leadership at the time and managed to, I suppose, engage with all parties, listen to all parties, and through I suppose, a democratic process, he led that. And I think on reflection, it was the right move at the time, and there's been massive benefits from that in the last 25 years.
I suppose one of the great things, Nudie, was the fact that for people who aren't aware, you're a Castleblaney Fogs man, and look, 3-time All-Star as well. So anytime you were coming up against Scottstown back in those days at club level, I guess that was the big rivalry. They were the 2 big clubs at the time. Still are 2 of the big clubs in Monaghan as well. But what was it like to come up against Sean McCague's Scottstown? Because even at county level, then I suppose it speaks volumes of him, the fact that he was able to bring all those players together, that it's such a rivalry at club level.
Yes, Johnny, there's no question about that. When Scottstown played Blaney in the early stages, the old saying, it was war without bullets, and it was great because you remember you dated the the county team on the Scotland team, and you had 5 of the Castlebrini Folks team, and 5 of the 6 backs of the Scotland team were actually the county team. So there was no love lost the day of a match. But the one thing Scotland and Blaney had above other teams, they had respect. And when the game was over, it was over. And when Sean was in the background, you just knew the Scotland were prepared in detail, as we were. And we had great finals, great memories. And the great thing about the comradeship you make up in those battles, that always stuck with us. The thing about it, Scotland and Castlebrini, whatever happened in the field stayed in the field. When Sean McCague was in the background, the respect we had for one another as a player, he was also a great friend. And when our reunion there came back in 2013, 25 years of the Ulster Championship, Sean's health was slightly deteriorating, but the one thing he ignited when the players, the 79 team got together, the 85 and 88, it really gave us that wee bit of lift. And Sean carried himself with distinction in everywhere. And when he walked into that room, even when we were in the Western Arms with the gathering, he just had that presence about it, and you respected that. Every step that he took, you were walking in the path of a man that had gained respect nationally, Ulster area, but more importantly in his own county and his own club. And everyone respected his decisions. And that's what we benefited an awful lot as players. And a lot have been very successful in management, coaching staff, and business. And they all can thank Porrick Duffy, and his good friend Sean McCague. That's the way they were a great pair. And Porrick was in the GSE when Sean became president, but they were always part of the family, and that's what made Sean different than anyone else. And you mentioned Scotland and Castlebrini were fanatical battles, but to hold the respect in Ulster, no other team or county run the championship the same day as Castlebrini and Scotland became when we were playing in the semi-finals or final. The opposition we called Cavan, Armagh, Down, none of them put on championships the same time as Castlebrini and Scotland, because a lot of the neutrals went to see that match. And Monaghan football was very strong. Scotland went on to win 3 Ulster clubs. Castlebrini had 2. So we carried the form of the county into our club scene, and that was our respect to, number one, the county itself, but the leadership that Sean McCague instilled in teams and players will continue, and it will be talked about in generations to come, as David highlighted. Great family, everything. Bernie and the girls, absolutely fabulous. Were there all the time for Sean through his illness, and very, very good.
It's funny, we started off talking about legacy, at the start of the show. Like that conversation just show you the legacy, and it's that imprint even after death. And you imagine the GA or people in Monaghan will be looking, how do we honour this man posthumously because of the legacy? That do we name something after him or whatever? And I'm sure that's already in the thoughts of many. Yeah, I'm sure it will. And just to give the final word to yourself, David, I know there'll be stories galore at the wake and the funeral in the coming days as well. And that removal is Saturday morning, 11:30. To arrive at St Mary's Chapel in Erbelshany in Monaghan for 12 noon funeral mass this Saturday, and he'll be buried in the adjoining cemetery as well. You're going to get so many stories, David, and it's lovely to hear Nudie talking there about the 25th anniversary of 1988 back in 2013, and to hear people. I guess people will be remembering now the last time they spoke to Sean and the stories they took from him. But I'm sure as your own life goes forward in your career, that stories and legacy will be something you'll take with you from Sean's life. Absolutely, Shane. We've learned so many lessons from him. So the greatest lesson he gave us, I suppose, and Nudie referenced it earlier, the great heights that he managed to reach in the GAA, and I suppose the people that he met there. And we would see him on a Sunday mingling with state dignitaries, maybe in Croke Park, and people in the upper echelons of the GAA. And then on a Sunday evening, he would always return home, and he would treat everyone at home equally with the same respect and the same dignity to treat those people that he met during the day. And I think that's a fantastic quality to have, that humility, and that's where he felt most comfortable. He was a keen huntsman in his earlier days. He wasn't a great footballer. He sort of a back injury sort of curtailed that, but he was a great person and a great man. And Nudie said that the players that played under him, he changed a huge amount of lives, and I can say that personally as well. The influence he had in my life,
is hugely significant, and the single biggest influence on me was Sean. And that's, I think I met loads of different people yesterday, the same story to say. Actually, I met a Ballybay man yesterday. I thought he made a lovely reference. He said he was our Hefo, that he led a generation of people that have a self-belief around who they were and what they could be. And I think that's ultimately his legacy for Monaghan people, that it gives them a pep on their step and an inch in their height, and they can be proud of who they are. And Sean played a massive role in that.
That's a great way to put it. Our Hefo, Monaghan's Hefo. Lads, David, Nudie, thanks a million for joining us. I know it's not easy so soon after Sean's death, but really appreciate you both taking the time to chat to us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Lovely. So David McCague there, the Scottstown manager, former Monaghan selector himself, and of course he's the nephew of Sean McCague. And we had Nudie Hughes there, 3-time All-Star, Monaghan legend. So very sad news yesterday, of course, paying tribute to Sean McCague. The qualifier system, of course, introduced under his tenureship as well as GA president, so a lot of things got done.
Galway, the first team to win under
benefit
the back door.
Of course.
I think just reading, he felt that pragmatically there was a need for finance to come into the organisation and into Croke Park at that time. And I have to say, I remember him at the time, but reading this morning and reading over the last couple of days, what a man, what a legacy. And I almost feel like I was in his presence just by reading people's tributes to him, and somebody that was totally special. You can tell that that what he did with that Monaghan team alone was staggering, really.
It was amazing. He set the bar, and I even remember when he was principal only for a couple of years for myself in primary school, and I had Porrick Duffy as a principal then in secondary school for a couple of years as well. But with Sean, I suppose it was one of those things. You didn't mess around with him, but a lovely man as well, and loved the GA with all his heart, and Scottstown GA particularly. But sad day for Monaghan GA. 9:05 AM on this Friday morning's OTB AM. Now check out the lunchtime wrap today, bringing you all the latest sports news. That's with thanks to Deliveroo. Check out the app for some great match day meal deals across the World Cup. Deliveroo, food, we get it. Here's what we've got coming up on OTB Sports Radio for you today. From 11:30, the Crappy Quiz will be live. From 1 o'clock, it's OTB Gold with Dennis Ogie Moran. 3 p.m, it's Fermanagh Mount Rushmore. At 4 o'clock, the Team 33 League of Ireland Legend interview with Mark Quigley. 6 p.m, OTB Gold, Keith Andrews meeting Philly McMahon. You can follow OTB across all our social channels and subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network for all the very best in the latest sports content. Up next, we'll be live in studio to discuss the Movember campaign with Wicklow native Michael Burton, who has just completed 32 half Ironmans in 32 counties. Not bad. First, the ex-Cameroon international and League of Ireland legend Joey Eto'o spoke with Nathan last night about the impact Samuel Eto'o has had on his nation. Back in a moment.
From what you know of Samuel Eto'o, and you would have been in many Cameroon squads when he was a young man, and he probably would have been used to high standards coming through at Real Madrid and their academy initially, and then obviously been part of one of the greatest club sides of all time, and working under Pep Guardiola at Barcelona. In terms of his personality, is he an incredibly demanding individual?
I think we have a similar personality. That means we can see the best out of people, and we try to take the best out of them. There is nothing strange. When it's not too much about being a winner. It's just when you're a competitor, you always want to win. That's just the nature. But you also understand that in some point you're going to lose. And that's the best way you're going to learn how to continue winning is to lose. So as a person, I love the guy. He has a big heart. He's a generous person. But when it comes to the game, especially when you know what you're talking about, you want people around you who has the same passion and who has the same desire. And I think in Rigobert's song, he finds someone who has the same desire to do something that no one ever done. I always say, for me, the legacy is more important than the money in football. When you go somewhere, you have to make sure that soon, the day you're going to leave, everyone will remember.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
From the good, Neymar can push the ball between your legs because he just sees things.
To the not so good.
Hold on, this now affects football. We'll have to find another way to protest like it was that bad.
That's right, it's the 2022 World Cup. Off the Ball will bring you the best insight and analysis, as well as the big stories off the pitch from the World Cup in Qatar.
All 11 players from both sides walk on their arm back. Send us all off. Good.
Subscribe to the OTB Football Podcast feed now. OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember.
effortless shave, magnificent Mo's.
8 minutes past 9 on Friday morning's OTB AM, brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent Mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. Speaking of magnificent Mo's, Michael Burton joins us in studio. Michael, how are you?
Very good. How are you, lads?
That's some effort. That moustache is. I haven't properly committed to it yet this year. It's probably cheating to shave it off now and leave the moustache, but you've actually had a proper effort.
I actually grew this from last year, so I started last year and grew it the whole year.
Still counts
with the mullet. So I did the mullet mustache combo. So
it's not one of these like pitches that has been recently relayed. This is like depth to it.
Oh yeah, girthy, like
girthy.
Yeah. For anyone unfamiliar with your story, Michael, tell us what you've done, because it was
a hell of a way to start the show, but talking about his moustache.
Sorry, I couldn't ignore the moustache in the room. But
that's better again. That's better again.
We said sorry. We 32 Ironman, half Ironmans in
32 half Ironman. So the 70.3 ones. In a row. So I started on the 31st of August and I finished on the 1st of October.
Lunatic was the word you used, Johnny, during the outbreak?
In a very endearing way.
Lunatic in an endearing way. Did you feel like a lunatic at any point during it, or are you thinking, why am I doing this?
There was a day where I got 4 punctures in a row. I was in Kilkenny and my phone broke. It was lashing rain, like torrential rain, and I started at 8 in the morning and I don't think I finished till 8:30 in the evening, and my girlfriend had to drive down from Dublin with another phone for me because I couldn't even navigate to go to the next place, and I was literally sat behind my car, in a crowded car park, sat with a pack of donuts and a Muju, and just I want to go home. I just want this to be over. But
people unfamiliar with the half, so what are the distances and disciplines in a half?
Yeah, so it's it's a 1.9k swim, a 90k cycle, and then a half marathon. So 21k's.
So how long would that ordinarily how long was it taking you on average?
Somewhere in the region, probably between 6.5 and 7.5 hours usually. But that was, I think the quickest one I did was a 35-minute swim, 2.5 hour bike, and then an hour 45-minute run.
I mean, you're a cyclist, a keen cyclist, Johnny. That's some decent times, considering what's going on, and your body's probably screaming at you.
How did you get 4 punctures in a day as well? I thought that was a hell of an achievement.
Don't even talk to me
mentally that's just a killer.
And the day before I got a puncture was in the middle of nowhere in Waterford. I was like, what am I doing? I couldn't believe it. But anyway, look, it happens.
So it was between day 4 and 7 you were having problems with your knee as well, which didn't make it easy.
Yeah, so between day 4 and 7 I made a big mistake in doing going indoors in the gym and trying to do it on a watt bike. But indoors you just get super sweaty, and that just causes all sort of skin problems. So that was a big mistake. But my right knee and my was all blown up, I suppose, and I couldn't straighten my leg or anything. So I was hobbling around trying to get the run done for that time. But then it kind of just went away. But then my feet were just all cut up as well. So
what percentage of it is mental and what percentage is physical in your point of view? Was it tough mentally, really tough mentally, or would you say it was more of a physical challenge?
Well, I'd listened to a podcast with the Iron Cowboy guy. Rick Rolls did a podcast with him, and he's just said, no matter what was going on, your mom was like, this is great. So I just took that mindset into it. No matter what was happening, I was like, this is great. There were some days where I was
just keep swimming, Finding Dory. Yeah.
I was just just keep going, and just put one foot in front of the other. But
there he is.
There's a photo of you on screen as well. Yeah,
that was. I literally just came off the bike 2 hours before that.
The legs. So I can only speak from having done a very miniature triathlon where the distances were minuscule in comparison to what you've done, and it was one day as opposed to a multitude of days in a row. Your legs must have been jelly coming off the bike.
In a jocker, yeah. You get used to it. So I didn't have a great lead up into it the month before because I'd done an Ironman, and then I was kind of a bit injured or just wasn't feeling great. So I had to use the first kind of 10 days as kind of training for the rest of it, and just was really, really slow and steady. But yeah, that picture, I'd literally fallen off the bike 2 hours before, came off 40 kilometers an hour, ripped up my hands.
How did you have the crash actually?
We have a photo of your injuries up on screen there.
Still smiling though, look at that.
How are you still smiling after that? The burn off the road must have been horrific.
Yeah, I was with a friend and his wheel buckled, and I was looking back trying to see what was going on. We were in a kind of like pretty much behind each other, and as I was looking back, I wasn't paying attention, and I hit a big massive curb, couldn't get my foot out of the cleat, and just ended up hitting the ground.
Oh jeez. You obviously have the cleats that your foot is stuck into.
Yeah.
You probably use the same ones, Johnny.
Yeah, like people who don't cycle normally wouldn't know the difference that they make. But I'm wondering what muscles are consistent with the three sort of disciplines, or like, you know, what muscles were particularly either hard as hell afterwards or were struggling through it.
So like my IT band, so like all up here from the cycling was just in bits.
Wow.
I remember going for a massage. I think it was like day 15 or something. Your mum was like, "This is crazy. Like your legs are just seized up." But
do it.
Keep going.
Were you losing weight, gaining muscle? Like what happens to the body over?
I think I might have lost a kilo over the whole thing. Now that's probably good. Like you don't really want to be losing weight.
Yeah.
You really don't want to lose weight.
What were you eating?
Everything. Lots of muesli, lots of carbs, lots of
you
rice
must
pudding.
have you must have a good appetite when you get off when you finish the thing. First of all, like
it took a while to be able to eat. To be completely honest, like I'm getting off. Like I wouldn't be one for eating, and I had to stop taking gels as well. So like usually you would take gels all the time, but they just weren't not good for my stomach. Like they were ripping me apart. So I had to try. At the beginning, I was probably eating too much, and then as it went on, I was like kind of getting a grasp for what I could eat and when I could eat it and how that would work. But yeah,
it's amazing. Like you're probably working out as you go along what food is doing to your body, and you're trying to. It probably takes a week or two into it before you realise, right, this is what I should be doing, this is what I shouldn't be doing. Like you're learning what you're struggling with, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you kind of just My girlfriend was a godsend, so it was like me, 2 bikes, a Ford Fiesta, and her. So fair play to her. Like,
but we were talking about Ronan O'Gara earlier, like going all around the world in pursuit of whatever that ultimate dream is. But like the woman and family behind that you don't see, it really is so important.
As my nana calls her Saint Emily.
Yeah,
she's just like, this is great.
Yeah,
but
it was similar with when we had Damien Brown in the studio after he did his Atlantic Row from New York to go and like. It's the same. You think of the support team that's behind it.
Yeah.
Now, of course, he's obviously doing the physical job of having to row across the North Atlantic.
Yeah.
But I mean, without the team and the support, it would be so difficult.
She's suffering too, like in another way, you know.
I know. I remember one day she did like some of the runs with me, and like the weekend, I think she might have done like a 15k and then like a 13k. And on the Monday, she was like, "My legs are so sore." I was just looking at her like, "Are you for real? Like, your legs are sore. Like this is day like 12."
Yeah. How do you think I feel? So it's 3 charities are benefiting from donations as well, Michael. So the Irish Cancer Society, I know that's a memory of your grandfather.
Yeah.
Jigsaw and Movember. So you were particularly, I suppose, wanting to highlight mental health, and that's why Movember, I suppose, came in.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose I kind of talked about it previously on other ones, but like mental health I think is so important, especially in young men. Like 3 out of 4 suicides in Ireland are young men. It's the leading cause of death between 15 and 29 year olds. So I think what Movember have been doing this month has been great. I've been going to some of their events. They've got a couple of events coming up this weekend. I think they're in a tattoo parlour tomorrow. Then they're doing like a hair dye, hair shave thing on Sunday. I'm actually speaking at an event with Sean O'Hara next Wednesday in Indigo and Cloth. That's at 7 p.m. So that's like a panel where we're going to talk about our kind of situations and how we felt and what that was like for us, I suppose, to give people an idea of kind of what we have been through and like what we did and what we put into place for that. So yeah, it's been really good. They have a comedy gig next week, so I think this month, especially for them, is class. And I'm trying to do as much as I can to kind of raise awareness for it.
I think it takes a certain type of almost like madness to pursue what you're doing, but the road from, I guess, barely being able to inspire yourself to actually inspiring others must be phenomenal.
Yeah, it's been it has been class. It's been class. Like even getting to come on here, I suppose the more I get
again.
Yeah,
we had to bring you on after, to be fair.
Yeah.
Beforehand, you hadn't even done it.
Yeah. So
mustache or no mustache?
Mustache, no. Well, I had the mustache then too. But no, it's great. Like getting to do this thing, I'm becoming more comfortable with it. Like I did a few talks last week for businesses during like Men's Mental Health Week and on International Men's Day and stuff like that. And the more I tell my story and the more I even go into the nitty gritty of it, the better it actually is for me. Even though
exactly.
And I think the more you kind of reveal yourself in those situations, the more people get out of it. Well, I actually got that definitely from last week. Like, I did a talk with Salesforce, and like even the messages that I got from people requesting to like connect with me on LinkedIn was like, thank you so much for that. Like and I suppose even for me, like people saying thank you to me for that is so great. Like, do you know what I mean? And going into schools as well. So trying to get young, because I know from when I was 14 to when I left school, I think when young lads, young men especially leave school, they lose their schedule and their routine, and that's so important. And I only realised that even during the challenge, when I was actually talking to, after the challenge, I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine, his mum, who's like a therapist, and she was saying, this is the biggest cause that I see, is that young men lose their routine, and that's where they're able to cope until that point, and then once they lose their routine, that's it. Like,
I felt that you weren't prepared at all for that, and it was even the shock of like going to college, and all of a sudden you're half on your own here now, and that structure is gone, and it's like all that kind of my teacher always said to me, these are the happiest days of your life, remember that. And of course he was right. At the time you're thinking like, well, I don't want to get up for the next class.
But that puts a pressure on it too, doesn't it, when you're being told that these should be the happiest days of your life, and some people don't feel that way.
And it's when you leave that structure of school and that camaraderie. And I think in rural Ireland, this is a real thing. If you go out into a job, you get up in the morning, you're working with older people, you've lost your friends to an extent. I think there's a shock factor that can really literally kill people.
Yeah, for me, I was able to cope from 14 to 18 because the bell went at 11 and I ate, and I got up and I went to school, and the bell went at 1, I had lunch, and the bell went at whatever, and I went to study, or I played sport, or I went to the gym, whatever it was. The minute that went, that's where everything really started to crumble. Like, that's where it got so dark. And it's only in retrospect, and I didn't even cop that until literally a couple of months ago. So yeah, it's crazy.
So people who may be unfamiliar with your talks or haven't attended one yet, like that's a key point in them, is your college experience and your own mental health struggles, I guess, during that time, and
exactly,
having a lack of motivation to get through it.
Well, I completely let myself go. Like, I played like sport up until I was 17, and after that I went to the gym up until I kind of finished school, and literally once I finished school and went on my 6-year holiday, I don't think I played sport again till I was like 23. Like, I tried to play a bit of rugby here and there, but nothing at all. Like, I was huge, I was ballooned up. Like,
how important has sport been in helping you bounce back? I mean, and sport,
if you want to call it sport.
Well, no, but not even in the team sense, just what you're doing, and endurance. Endurance is the toughest sport discipline of all, no doubt.
Yeah, well, like, I suppose at the beginning of the pandemic, living in London with three other lads, like, just running, and it was just that, it was actually the competitiveness of trying to beat each other's time. Now, we weren't going very fast, like 26-minute 5Ks, like, geez, like, that's pretty slow now for me, but at that time it was just getting up, and like that little change of that kind of being competitive even with your mates or whatever it was, changed it, and then it was just a snowball effect from there, just complete snowball effect, until I realised that sport was just an outlet. It wasn't actually fixing anything. So then I was like, alright, I've got so far, I've lost a lot of weight, I'm fit, I'm healthy, now actually let's deal with the real problems.
Unbelievable. Listen, Michael, your story's inspiring you. You've other talks coming up, you said?
Yeah, so Indico and Cloth next week with Sean O'Hara on Wednesday, and then I'm doing things with schools over the next while before I move away. So that's the plan, and then getting ready for the next challenge. So
brilliant. What's the next challenge again? You're talking about?
Yeah, so next.
I mean, you are mad.
Yeah, anyway. The next challenge is a 4,500 kilometre run over 45 days. So 100.
Lost me at the next challenge.
Yeah.
Sorry, you lost me at the maths. So divide that. That's 100 kilometres a day.
100 kilometres a day. So I'm going to go Dublin down around the coast to Galway, Galway across to Dublin, Dublin up around the coast to Galway, Galway back to Dublin.
This is, sorry, not even cycling, this is running.
This is running, yeah, because running was the hardest bit of the challenge.
Sorry, some people would set themselves a target of running 100 kilometres in 45 days and do it 4.5k a day. But you're doing 100 kilometres per day for 45 days.
Yeah.
That's mad. I mean, brilliant. It's brilliant. Like,
yeah,
that's on a level of toughness compared to the one you're after doing. Like, how does it?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Well, I know
I
that
think it's going to be worse.
Running was the hardest bit. That's why I'm doing running. I was going to do a cycle around Ireland. So I was going to start in Malin, cycle around, finish in Malin, and then run the length, like a massive brick session. But then I was like, it's a bit too easy, so I'll just do the run.
Too easy, yeah.
Where's St. Emily going to be in all this? I mean, think of her.
Be on the road with the Ford Fiesta.
I think that Ford Fiesta will be gone by that stage, hopefully.
Well, listen, I have a Forrest Gump hat at the house. I can give it to you to borrow if you want for the
100%.
For the run as well.
Give it to me, yeah.
Brilliant. Listen, Michael, thanks a million for coming in, and
thank you very much.
Continuing to share the story.
Thank
no
you.
doubt when we have you back in, the moustache will be at another level. Again, it's very impressive, I have to say. So fair play for coming in. It is 9:24 a.m. on this Friday morning's OTB AM, brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mow. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. OTB AM back Monday morning with Jer and myself in studio. Gavin Cooney of the 42.e. He's over in Qatar. He'll be live on the line with the latest from the World Cup across the weekend. Plenty of games. Spain, Germany on Sunday. Should be a cracker. We'll have the Gillette Labs performance rankings, reacting to the weekend's World Cup, rugby, and much more besides. To have an interview with Evan Ferguson, I want to bring you now. Just a quick mention of this. The FAI kind of handed me this yesterday, and I was like, I'll definitely give this a plug. It's a brilliant initiative with Monaghan County Libraries, my own county. So Amanda McCarville and Deirdre McQuaid from Monaghan County Council have developed this, and it's being distributed to school children in Monaghan. So it's aligning to the National Right to Read programme. This is to promote literacy and reading development for people of all ages and backgrounds. Launched by the Irish senior men's football team as well. So it's an activity book, but it's made to assist teachers in the classroom and for parents as well and guardians at home. So you've got every subject: English, maths, geography, history, Irish, all delivered via the game of football. So you've got all the flags and World Cup stuff in there. So it's cross-curricular nature of the book. So the aim is for all 5th and 6th class pupils in the 61 primary schools in Monaghan to receive a hard copy of this book, while also catering for first years and post-primary as well as part of the Junior Cert SP literacy programme. So really good initiative. Game On is the name of the book, so you can look it up and find more details about that. But as I said, I had a chat yesterday with Evan Ferguson, the young Brighton and Republic of Ireland international striker, of course. Made his debut for the senior team last week against Norway, and hopefully the first of many caps for him. So we'll leave you with that chat. Enjoy, have a great weekend.
OTB AM.
Alright, well I'm here in Sculkieran in Glasnevin in Dublin, and delighted to be joined by the Brighton and now Republic of Ireland senior striker Evan Ferguson. Evan, how are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks.
Keeping well?
Yeah, keeping well.
We're here, I've got one of the booklets in front of me. So Futsal in the Yard, really, really good initiative where the FEI have been getting young kids, disadvantaged kids with special needs as well to play football, and to more importantly keep involved with football. So you've been meeting some of the kids this morning, Evan, having the fun with them?
Came in today and see it now. It's very good what they do for the kids now. It's for them to come in and play football. I think football's for everyone, you know what I mean? So sort of a very good thing for the FAI to do.
Can you remember when you were around that age? Like watching through the window there earlier, and kids of 10, 11, 12, and when you were around that age, did you ever think that you'd be playing at some point Premier League, Republic of Ireland senior team? Was it ever even in your head at that point?
I think when you're that young, you just want to play football, you know what I mean? Like when you're with your mates, you just want to play football, and you're not thinking, oh, Premier League, this and that. I think that comes a bit later, you know what I mean? Because at that age, you just want to have fun.
What was that like last week? So last Thursday night, around about 9:30, 89th minute in that match against Norway. And I know I was chatting to your dad, Barry, you know, to come off the bench at the Aviva Stadium and make your first cap for the Republic of Ireland senior team, that must have been quite a moment.
Yeah, I think it's hard to take in at that moment in time, you know what I mean? Because you're trying to concentrate, you know what I mean? Even though like you're going there your whole life watching games and that, but you're just trying to concentrate and do a job. But I think looking back on it, it's going there in front of your family and your friends and everyone that goes to the games. It's unbelievable feeling, yeah. Are
you aware, like I was talking to your dad Barry earlier, and a lot of people be familiar with Barry's career. He played over in England and for League of Ireland as well, but he was saying he was almost not watching the match, he was watching the subs bench and trying to see were you warming up and were you close to coming on. Like, were you aware of where your family were sitting and you're aware of what's going on?
I hadn't a clue now, because I was texting my family that before the game, but I didn't have a clue where they were sitting, to be honest, so I couldn't go up and wave at them or anything. So, no.
Your dad, Barry, so like I know he does a lot of work with the FEI as well in development, and he was a centre half. So what was it like? Like, was it the type of thing that you moulded into a striker because he's giving you tips when you're younger as to how to cope with good centre halves, or vice versa? Like, how did that all come about?
I don't know. I think I just like scoring goals, you know what I mean? I think that was my thing. I just like scoring and just different types of finishes. But if I ever needed that from him, it's obviously easier to get advice because he's a centre back. He'd know what it's like playing against different types of strikers and different types of centre backs. So it's good to have him there if I ever do need that.
Like when you're looking at other people for advice, I guess the senior players in Stephen Kenny's squad are quite important. Like what's been like, you know, with the likes of Seamus Coleman and Shane Duffy and James McLean, have they been very forthcoming in terms of, you know, arm around the shoulder, giving you little bits of advice as to, you know, when they came into the squad first? I suppose?
Yeah, they're all at top now, to be fair. Like going into the squad, everyone's welcoming in that. So I obviously knew Duffy from before. He wasn't in the last squad, but like even at Brighton, he was very good with me. And going into the squad, the likes of Seamus and James and that, they were very good with me now. It makes it an easier experience.
When we look at the Euro 2024 qualifier draw, it wasn't the easiest draw we could have got, France and the Netherlands. Like, I suppose the expectation now that you've made your debut is that you'll push on and be involved with that squad, hopefully. Like, when you see the draw, are you like, Jesus, that could have gone better? Or are you thinking, what a chance to impress against some of the best defenders in the world? You've got the likes of Van Dijk with the Dutch and Varane with the French team. It's not a bad challenge to have.
Yeah, I think playing against them teams, I think as the Irish, we always try fancy ourselves. Like we go in there as the underdogs every time, you know what I mean? So we always try fancy ourselves and gives it the best go. And I don't think we really care who we play against, you know what I mean? So whoever we have to play against, we're going to try win. And I think under the gaffer now, Stephen, I think we have a chance, you know what I mean? So
what's Stephen been like to work with? Because like we know he's a manager that has nurtured young talent and likes to bring young talent into the squad, and certainly has developed young players and brought them in. And look, he's taken the brunt of a lot of pressure when results don't go well. Undoubtedly, questions come up, but you know, all the focus now, I guess, is in Euro 2024. But what's the experience been like with Stephen from your point of view?
Yeah, he's been very good now. He has been very good. He has a style of play, and I think everyone's on the same wavelength as what they need to do. So it's obviously going out, there's no mixed signals going onto the pitch, so that makes it a lot easier. But I think it's good for the young players, like the likes of me and stuff, that want to come and break through, that he does give you the opportunity. So I think it'll benefit the country if he's going to try and bring the young players in, and I think, yeah, it'll benefit everyone.
You've had a fairly big month, because even last month, turning 18, getting your first professional contract with Brighton, like that must be a special moment to finally get the pen and the paper and confirm you're staying till 2026 with Brighton.
Yeah, I think it's everyone's sort of dream, really, is knowing that they're going to be playing football for the next 4 years, you know what I mean? But they do it, and I think that they welcome me really well. Like, I've been over there now sort of 2 years or whatever, and I'm glad to stay there for another 4, you know what I mean? So just want to wait and see what happens now.
Some people will be familiar with the fact that you had Liverpool after your services as well when you were leaving Bowes, but was that a tough choice to make? Like, I've heard you talking before about the fact that, you know, some young lads go off to a big team like Liverpool and maybe get lost in the system, whereas Brighton, you probably felt fairly welcomed when you went over there and tried with them. Was it a tough decision between Brighton and Liverpool?
Yeah, I think it was sort of my thinking, really. Like, I've obviously went over and tried with the two clubs, and Liverpool, you could just tell like it was a lot different, because you could tell that like they could come in and just buy like an 18 million striker, which they have now with Nudie. So, but when I went over to Brighton, it was different. Like, they had a lot of Irish lads, and they were successful as well over the Irish lads. So I thought, there's a pathway here, you know what I mean? And it's lucky now, looking back on it, I think it was the right choice.
When you look at that Brighton forward line, like the likes of Danny Welbeck, I guess, it's someone like, is it a case of staying late after training, doing shooting drills with the likes of Danny and these lads, or how do you manage that? I suppose you're picking up plenty of tips from those lads as well at club level.
Yeah, he's a top lad as well. He's really looked after me, but I just in training every day, like, you see the little bits, you learn bits from everyone, you know what I mean? Because I've been doing it for years, but just going in every day, doing what you need to do, doing a few extras and that, so that's what you need to do.
What's the transition been like? I know Graham Potter was a big fan of yours. Now he's off to Chelsea, and Roberto De Zerbi has come in and listen, got off to a brilliant start with Brighton. But what's that been like transition wise? Because I suppose for a young player, it's an interesting moment when a new manager comes in and you're wondering, you know, am I going to get opportunities here, or what's the story?
Yeah, I think at the start, like, you just have to be patient, you know what I mean? Because the old manager, he knew what you were like and he knew what you could do, but with this, you just have to sort of start from fresh again, you know what I mean? So you still have to go and prove yourself again, and hopefully I can do that and try to get into the squad, into the team.
Is it? Of course, there's the rumours of potential loan move in January, and with young players, I guess that's it's an option to get plenty of first team football. Like, is that something that you've had discussions with already? I know there's no doubt a host of clubs lining up. You'll probably have options if you decided to go down that route. But is that something that you're thinking about for January, or had talks about yet?
I think that's what the loan's for. You know what I mean? To give players in this kind of situation things to do, like games to play. But I need to go back now and we'll have a chat about it, but I'm not sure. Like, I haven't had any chat about it yet, you know what I mean? So, because the break and stuff, I'll go back and see what they have to say. Like,
are you getting a chance to watch the World Cup at the moment? Are you getting, like, is it I guess at the stage now where once the international games are over, you get the chance to relax, play a bit of golf or whatever it is with your mates and chill out? Do you get time to just sit down and enjoy it?
I've like a week off now, so I've just been out relaxing. I was playing golf yesterday. It's not the greatest weather for it, but just time to relax and see friends and family, you know what I mean? So
are you any good at the golf?
I'd say I'm alright.
What are you playing off?
I don't have a handicap for that, and I just play the play, you know what I mean? But I'm alright, like, I can hit the ball.
It's a stress reliever in some ways.
Yeah.
You've been great with your time, Evan. I suppose when I'm talking about the World Cup and I'm thinking of players, unfortunately Erling Haaland wasn't there to come up against you last Thursday. But like, when you're sitting there watching the World Cup and you're seeing players like, you know, Mbappe and Giroud and these lads doing the business, and even players gone past, are there strikers that you've kind of moulded your game on, and you like to think you're alike in some ways, or is it just a case of no, my own player?
I think it's you just want to be your own player, but it's sort of a mix. Like, you look at different players, like you look at Harry Kane, Lewandowski, Haaland, you look at all them players and just try to get different bits from what they've done and what they can do and try to bring it into your own game.
I'm sure you're used to playing against big players. Wasn't it 14 years of age you were playing against Chelsea? Frank Lampard's first game in charge.
Yeah, it was.
For both. Do you remember that moment and what did you feel like you were maybe, you were obviously ready because the manager felt you were ready, but 14 was quite an experience for you, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it was. It was weird because, like, I remember it was during the summer, so I came back into school after the summer, and that's what people are talking about, you know what I mean? It was different at the time, but I think now you see more young players are coming through and playing, you know what I mean? So it's not as weird now, but at the time it was, to me, it wasn't really anything, you know what I mean? But you're seeing all the things that people were saying on Twitter and Google or whatever, but it didn't really bother me.
You don't pay much attention to the social media hype?
I don't really care, to be honest.
Ignore it. Listen, Evan, great stuff. Congrats on the cap last week, and first of many, hopefully, no doubt. And the goals will come now in the Euro 2024 qualifiers. Evan Ferguson, thanks a million.
OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent modes.